Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Kick me out of S.H.I.E.L.D. I destroyed everyone in the Avengers. Chapter 21. What a mess. Captain Steve watched helplessly as the venom in front of him expanded and formed into a giant monster. This seemed to be a skeletal spider made up of pitch-black skeletons. Its sharp mouthparts were like serrations, piercing the air and creating sharp reverberations. But at the heart of this monster, there is a thick layer of periosteum growing, protecting Peter hidden within. Compared with the last change, this time it looked even more barbaric and ferocious. The weird distortion even affects the host's sanity. He fell into madness. Kill. The remaining belief in Peter's heart is for him to kill the two superheroes in front of him. But at this moment of tension, Iron Man Tony clapped his hands and applauded. He looked at the huge amounts of monsters in front of him and praised. I still underestimated the potential of this alien creature. It can actually produce such benign mutations in a symbiotic state. I really want to dissect your body and see the inner structure. As soon as these words came out, it's not just Captain Steve. Even Hawkeye and Black Widow, who had just rushed to the battlefield not far away, were stunned. They looked at the tall monster and saw their own insignificance. But Iron Man said that he would defeat Peter and even do research on him. Isn't this crazy? This would make sense if it were said about a mad scientist. But this guy in front of me is a playboy. Is this alien creature really a treasure? Let this well-informed genius inventor be unable to contain his inner ecstasy and express some ideas. In this case, you need to inform director Nick to bring in more manpower. After all, good things can't fall into other people's hands. Hawkeye and Black Widow looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. And just then, the spider demon in the sky, which was already in rage state, also started to take action. In its view, the group of ants in front of it were obviously having some evil intentions. Just right, let's settle old and new grudges together. The huge amounts of spider legs fell, carrying terrifying power. Boom, it fell in response. A huge pit 3 meters wide appeared on the ground. If this blow fell on a person, it would definitely trample him into a pulp. Captain Steve looked solemn, unable to think of a way to break the situation for a while. Not as confident as he was just now. Iron Man Tony was also surprised when he saw this, but he quickly found a way to deal with it, and ordered Jarvis, activate the Iron Legion. In order to face possible future crises, he has already designed many different battle armors. In the past, they only existed in weapons arsenals next to laboratories. But today, all members of the Iron Legion attack. Surround this big spider. And just as Tony was looking far into the distance, groups of fire spewed out from the horizon, ranging from small to large, and gradually became more conspicuous. Warning, warning, there are huge amounts of spider monsters in Hell's Kitchen, please don't get close and take a quick detour. After Peter and Venom turned into giant monsters, news broke out on the internet. Liaison also discovered this news in the secret base. When he browsed the web and scanned the short video that came with it, he found out that it was members of the Avengers fighting the spider demon, and he fell in love with him. A glass of happy water and snacks to amuse you. Spider-Man was beaten violently by him. And the members of the Avengers are like a nest of snakes and rats. There is really nothing to look forward to when the two fight. Zitza. At this moment, the carnage crawled in along the edge of the door. It walked carefully to the workbench and reported its work respectfully to the man in front of it. He talked about the impact of this period on the gangsters of Hell's Kitchen. He told about his encounter with the spider demon Peter. When the slaughter said, he knocked out 2 of Peter's teeth. A smile appeared on Liaison's face. He reached out and rubbed the cute thing in front of him. I admired this friendly incident of, father is kind and son is filial. Isn't this right? The pet he raised actually killed the superhero Spider-Man and the cheap daddy. Isn't this better than the burning from Boruto? What made him feel even more happy was that this massacre had only transformed once and had such a strong improvement in strength. It was hard to imagine how much impact he would have after acquiring the physique of the Divine Tree bloodline. And this American comic universe is indeed a world filled with outstanding people, and it is extremely full of all kinds of energy. Liaison felt that his body was like a black hole, frantically absorbing the surrounding energy into his body, trying to present a fairy body in this world. This kind of 24/7 hang-up. It's even more exciting. So beautiful. Different from when I first obtained the divine tree physique, I am at least 5% stronger now. It would be nice if the mission was triggered again. He was thinking a little greedily. Ding, a random mission has been detected nearby. The rage of the spider demon. Peter the spider demon first experienced the humiliation of being massacred and then having his face stepped on by Captain Steve, and then faced the risk of being dissected during the discussions between the Avengers members. He was angry and wanted to make this happen. A group of superheroes who despised him paid the price. Ding, after accepting this mission, the host needs to help Peter slap his face and make the Avengers members lose face. The reward for this mission will be doubled depending on Peter's gratitude level. After Li Zan saw this mission, his eyes lit up. His first task was to help Sandman slap Spider-Man in the face. I've already picked out Spider-Man's wool. Now it can be operated again, and it still slaps the Avengers in the face. This is not a one-time mission, is it fun twice? Are old and new grudges settled together? Do I enjoy the blessings of others? Li Zan felt at ease, then stroked Slaughter's head and fed it a second energy meal. Hurry up and eat your fill. Next, we still have things to do. On the other side, as the news about the giant spider demon appearing in the sky over Hell's Kitchen spread, April also got the news and urged her partner to drive the vehicle towards the destination. Along the way, from time to time, she saw vehicles driving in the wrong direction, as if they were escaping from some terrible disaster. April, are you sure we really want to go to that place to shoot news? Yes, but look, how many people are fleeing, but we, thrown ourselves into a trap, aren't we too, stupid? Do you like hearing compliments from others? Do you want to be paid handsomely? Do you want to be famous? Then come with me, April said, with an amazing enthusiasm on her face. And as soon as these words came out, the partner didn't say much anymore. After all, no one can resist the temptation of fame and fortune. Crash. After a sudden braking of the vehicle. What came into view was a ruined and scorched earth. It's hard to imagine that in this modern city, such a doomsday-like scene would occur. When April got out of the car, her legs were a little weak. And just as she was looking far away, the huge amounts of spider demon came into view. Just looking at it is intimidating. If faced with a giant spider 2 or 3 meters high, people will not lose confidence in resisting because the gap between the two sides has not widened to the point where it cannot be bridged. But this spider demon is as tall as a 10-story building. As he trampled, you could see buildings being trampled to pieces by him. The exposed steel bars and broken floor tiles all told of this atrocity. April turned her head and looked around. What she could see were injured people fleeing, but she didn't see any sign of rescue. What about those superheroes who claim to be able to solve all problems? Aren't they partners of justice? Why not come and fight evil? The female reporter greeted her partner and wanted to move towards the center of the fight. Are you crazy? We could die. I'm not crazy. Look at the tragedy around here. We are reporters and we have to record all of this. Believe me, this is not only big news, but it can also be used to combat those hypocritical superheroes. April Xiaoji spoke with reason and emotion. After her partner was successfully persuaded, they walked to the central location together. The place where they are staying at the moment is located on the outside of the battle circle. It's still 1,000 meters away from the central location. More than 10 minutes later, when April and her partner passed through a house with only half of the wall remaining, they truly entered the decisive battle. Immediately, she was shocked again by the scene in front of her. The sets of battle armors that far exceeded the current level of technology were flying in the air, emitting colorful laser rays and burning the giant spider demon in the center. He was surrounded by more than a dozen battle armors and looked very embarrassed. If it weren't for his rough skin and thick flesh, he could be defeated with just this move. He also sensed the coming crisis. Peter, who is at the heart of the spider demon, also shows extremely high fighting talent. He originally had a spider sense, which could predict upcoming crises. This time he was besieged by Iron Man's Iron Legion. Although he suffered a lot, it also allowed him to quickly control this huge amount of body. Although his eyes were red and he looked completely irrational, it didn't mean that Peter was weak. On the contrary, abandoning all the influence of reason, he inspired the hunter's instinct. Kill, kill, kill. The huge amounts of black spider stretched out its 8 pairs of long legs like a sickle, spreading out an airtight blade. Withstood the Iron Legion's attack in an unexpected way. Just when Iron Man was still a little dazed. Bang! Those huge amounts of length were enough to destroy 2 armors with lightning speed. Fire mixed with debris fell from the sky. Clang! It shocked several people on the ground. It's so sharp, if it had hit me, it would have been turned into flesh. Hawkeye murmured, with a look of fear on his face. Captain Steve also looked helpless. After all, he was only a human being and there was really no way to fight against the huge amounts of monsters. Needless to say, Black Widow is using communication equipment to report the situation to S.H.I.E.L.D. They were all shocked by the powerful combat power that Peter and Venom unleashed after merging. Apart from reinforcements, I didn't think of any other solution. Captain America, Agent Hawkeye, Black Widow. Although April has never met a real person, she is familiar with the Avengers team formed by S.H.I.E.L.D. Now after seeing it for the first time, he actually looked shriveled. You really deserve it. April laughed, but she thought of her encounter with the butcher. Although she only had a brief contact with him, she also knew that the man only hated evil and dealt decisively with criminals. After all, when dealing with those super criminals, we should kill them instead of showing mercy and leaving them to be judged by the law. But the Avengers actually eliminated him. This is so stupid. April turned her head, with residual anger still on her face, and greeted her partner. It's big news to film the embarrassment of these superheroes. I know. The partner had already pressed the shutter and captured this rare scene in the camera. The tide of battle began to turn. As Peter gradually mastered the huge amounts of the spider's body, it was his turn to show off his skills. The harvester-like mouthparts could also eject large amounts of spider silk, turning the surrounding area into a hunting ground. The toughness and strength of these spider silks are very high, and as they spread into a web, they can also cause line-of-sight strikes. Even if the steel armor can spray flames, as long as there is a slight hesitation in action, it will be chopped into pieces by the sharp sickle of the spider demon. 3 more battle armors were damaged. Exploding in the air, it was like fireworks, extremely dazzling. This spider demon, thick skin, the blood is thick, and area damage. After Iron Man Tony saw this unfavorable situation, his face darkened. After all, the Iron Legion he created is not a big deal. Each armor costs tens of millions of dollars, and only Stark Industrial Group, a big spender, has the ability to burn money. But every time the spider demon attacks, these expensive armors are being damaged. This made Tony feel unhappy. But the material losses alone are nothing. But, if he can't attack for a long time, isn't this a slap in his face? Is he a genius scientist? How is it possible that even this brutal super villain cannot be subdued? Then activate the first-level combat state. Tony ordered to Jarvis. Connect the satellite cannon and set the target to be the spider demon Peter Parker. It depends on the situation. Tony won't be able to hold on much longer. Captain Steve was hiding in the dark, and when he glanced at the steel armors in front of him that were being continuously destroyed, until he was the only one left to fight in the end, he came to this conclusion in advance. Although he also wanted to go out and help. But after seeing the previous fighting between God's posture, the 3 members wisely gave up the idea. It would be okay if they were allowed to fight ordinary super criminals. But it is powerless to fight against this huge amounts of monster. Hawkeye held the crossbow tightly, but did not dare to shoot an arrow at the enemy. Even Iron Man's laser couldn't penetrate the spider's shell. It was even less likely that his gadgets would harm it. Even in normal times, they are indeed dissatisfied with Tony Stark's words and deeds, but when this crisis comes, they have no one to rely on and can only rely on him to fight against criminals. But now looking at this posture, even he is in danger. Maybe, our new partner can. Captain Steve turned his head and spoke solemnly, with a convincing look on his face. That Dr. Banner who claims to be a combatant. Hawkeye responded after hearing this. That's right, Captain Steve nodded, but he looks so weak. How can he defeat such a powerful enemy? Hawkeye continued to retort. And so it is. After Dr. Banner became involved in this organization, he did not show his true strength. Let alone trust. Except for Captain Steve, who is the role model of the team. On the second day after Dr. Banner joined the team, he followed Agent Hill to learn about his situation and abilities, and also watched a clip of a battle. When Dr. Banner became angry, a green monster was born from his body. They came out and flattened a school. This can be said to be deity's power. If it can be used well, it will have a strong impact on the pattern of world peace. After all, weapons of mass destruction such as atomic bombs are still deadly. And Dr. Banner is alive. Captain Steve looked at his companions around him and said meaningfully, "So what about Tony? He can't beat the new Dr. Banner." As he spoke with certainty on his face. Beyond the sky, the powerful impact cannon penetrated the clouds, carrying a huge force, and hit the spider demon Peter, who thought he had a chance to win. Boom! A violent shock wave spread out in an instant. Dust was kicked up, wrapped up debris, hit it hard again. The ruins are rendered more and more like a wasteland. Peter was also wailing in pain in this beam of light. Even though the venom in his body had strong potential and merged with him to create a terrifying thing like the spider demon and destroy this area, the light and heat were still there. It is his nemesis, but it has been reduced a bit by this hard shell. But at this moment, as the light beam penetrated the shell, the damage was directly applied to the venom. The severe pain caused the venom that had originally expanded to the limit to begin to shrink and dissolve. It's like an ice cube that is constantly losing volume under the scorching sun. Within tens of seconds, the huge amounts of spider demon shrunk by more than half, and were only a dozen meters tall. And this clearly visible change also fell into the eyes of others. Clang! Captain Steve's shield fell to the ground. The last second he swore that Iron Man was about to lose. But the next second, he was slapped hard in the face. Ha ha, it's just relying on high technology to attack. Captain Steve turned his head and looked at his companions and explained again. Dr. Banner is different. He relies solely on his powerful body to destroy everything around him with one punch and one kick. His strength is truly powerful. Ah! Screams sounded. The huge amounts of spider demon are still disintegrating. In this short period of time, he has degraded to only 5 meters tall, and Peter, who is located at the heart, has gradually revealed his figure, twisting crazily on the ground. He has already feeling the damage caused by this satellite cannon to him. The pain that penetrated his heart almost tore him apart. If it weren't for the venom that dispersed most of it, he would definitely be torn apart. But symbionts also have limits. As the venom shrank him to the point where it could only wrap him, the offensive of the light cannon was not over yet, but Peter knew that if he didn't think of a way, he would be dead. But under the impact of this powerful energy, even if he frantically thought about various methods, he still found nothing. The scorching energy cannon had burned his skin. Gonna die. Really dying. This suffocating feeling of imminent death enveloped him. Just when Peter opened his eyes wide and scanned everything around him, taking in Captain Steve and the Black Widow and his group who were watching coldly, the rage that burst out from the bottom of his heart burst out crazily. Why are you willing to die like this? How could you lose to this group of people? Under the crisis of death, Peter briefly regained his sanity, but he will face the despair of losing everything again. Boom! It was also at this critical moment. Sudden changes occur. First, dark clouds gathered, mixed with thunder and lightning, forming a storm. Then countless bolts of thunder and lightning fell from the sky towards Peter. If the satellite cannon is enough to annihilate this little reptile, that thunder and lightning just added fuel to the fire. Iron Man Tony also opened his mask, showing his proud expression as he admired the battle situation after the dust settled. Click. His proud look was also recorded by April. It's all over. Captain Steve shook his head. Although he admitted that the Dark Spider-Man was very strong, how could manpower be worth the high technology destroyed by that powerful energy cannon? Under this interweaving of thunder and lightning, Peter's fate seems to have been decided. I just hope that S.H.I.E.L.D. can share some of the research results obtained on this alien creature. Captain Steve is not pedantic, he has experienced the suits made by Fitz. And this is inspired by the Venom symbiote. It is an incomplete product. If it is complete, it will definitely enable him to better protect this country. But surprisingly, after a while, Spider-Man Peter survived after being struck by lightning and satellite cannon. Cough cough cough. Just when the satellite cannon was attacking, the lightning struck down one after another, and Peter thought he was dead. But what was unexpected was that the thunder and lightning protected his body as if it were spiritual. Not only did he not get hurt, instead, it resisted the satellite bombardment, buying precious time for Peter to practice. Obviously he was about to die. I didn't expect it to take a turn for the worse. Peter's face was full of excitement. Looking at this smart thunder and lightning, he naturally knew that someone was secretly helping him. Wasn't it reported that a powerful mutant came to New York City a few days ago? I didn't expect him to be a warm-hearted person. Peter burst into tears of gratitude. He also experienced repeated blows. I have experienced the fall from heaven to hell several times. It is obvious that the defeat has been decided. He was also rescued. This kind of act of providing help in times of crisis made Peter have a good impression of the person he had never met. And just after the energy beam of the satellite cannon gradually dissipated, Peter's figure appeared in front of everyone again. His body was covered with scars, but his eyes were firm as he scanned the surrounding enemies. Clang! Iron Man lost his balance and almost fell to the ground. As a maker of weapons, he knew exactly how lethal it was. But this black spider actually managed to survive and still seems to have some strength left. Does this kind of alien creature have such powerful potential? The greed in Tony's eyes was even worse. He wanted to break open the skin of the symbiote in front of him and squeeze out all the scientific research value from him. Captain Steve also walked out. He swept past the two people confronting each other and stood silently next to Tony. He stretched out his hand and accused Peter. Look around, look at the disaster you have caused, how many people will suffer because of it? If you are displaced, how many people will be separated from their wives because of you? Hee. Peter just sneered when he heard this. Wasn't it all the influence of S.H.I.E.L.D. that brought him to this stage? At this moment, he pretends to be a good person and accuses himself crazily. Are they themselves right? Captain, have you forgotten that I once stepped on you? Even a prodigal dog dares to bark. You fool. Captain Steve felt like he was on the wrong side of things. This experience had already become a stain on his career, and now it was being exposed in public. He had already felt some strange looks from his companions around him, and he couldn't help but feel resentful in his heart. S.H.I.E.L.D. will judge you. Justice will judge you. Captain Steve read out with a righteous look on his face. Iron Man Tony also frowned instinctively when he saw this. He couldn't stand this kind of behavior that usually doesn't contribute, but waits for the dust to settle, but wants to share the pie. What's this? This is peach picking. This black Spider-Man belongs to my uniform. It is impossible to take him away from me. Tony spoke righteously and his tone was particularly strong. Captain Steve should have argued after hearing this, but surprisingly he did not choose to argue. Instead, he gestured with his eyes to Black Widow to speak. Natasha Romanoff quickly walked out and became the peacemaker. We are companions. We can't let such trivial matters hurt our friendship. Captain Nick has a few words to say to you. I want to see how you feel at ease. Iron Man Tony did not refuse, but Jarvis opened the conversation with the S.H.I.E.L.D. After some conversation, Tony's attitude softened and he didn't mention the trophies again. All disputes arise from the uneven division of interests. In this case, as long as one party pays enough benefits, everything becomes negotiable, and S.H.I.E.L.D. happens to be an organization that has been established for 70 years. During these years, he has collected countless weird things, many of which contain alien technology and super ancient civilization, but due to the lack of professional scientific researchers to analyze it, these treasures have been covered in dust. Director Nick took out a special item, Terrigen Crystal, in exchange for the right to research venom, and Tony could participate in the entire process of researching venom. Isn't this just borrowing a chicken to lay an egg, and the benefits are not lost, but a treasure is also picked up? Tony expressed his approval of this way of dividing interests. They talked like no one else was around, and even argued about the ownership of the Spider Demon, and ended up with one party ceding the interests. This is the superhero league that represents light and justice. After seeing all this happening, April felt extremely absurd. But this is reality. Where there are flowers and a full moon, justice will prevail. This is true and unabashed humanity. Avengers attack. After several members restored a semblance of peace, Captain Steve waved the S.H.I.E.L.D. in his hand and led the team members behind him to launch a counterattack against the Spider Demon in front of them. They performed extremely well at this time. Whether it is coordination of shots or tacit understanding of movements, teamwork is highlighted. And Peter was beaten to the point of retreat. Just like those super criminals who were defeated in the past, they have become their background and foreshadowing. As the glory of justice shines on the earth again. Steve slammed the shield down hard and pointed at Peter's head. Getting closer. There is no stopping you. Clang. The shield flew backwards and hit the wall deeply. What's going on? Before Captain Steve could react, his vision went dark, followed by a feeling of weightlessness. He was pushed out with a strong force, spun twice in the air, and landed on his face again. What just happened? Captain Steve stood up holding his painful cheek and asked his friends around him. It seemed like a flash of lightning, Hawkeye said with some uncertainty. Although his vision had reached the limit of human beings and could aim at buildings hundreds of meters away, there was no foreshadowing for what had just happened. He only saw a shadow. Are those mutants here again? Iron Man remembered the news from the past 2 days. Another person with lightning super ability appeared in New York City. People with super abilities don't dare to cause trouble to us. Hawkeye frowned. After all, in this world, it's still about background and power. S.H.I.E.L.D is the golden brand. In addition, after destroying several dens and imprisoning a group of super criminals, no criminals dared to touch their brows. But the next second, Hawkeye was knocked away. Thunder suddenly appeared. The thunder and lightning intertwined and combined to form a vivid unicorn. But the mythical beast can. What on earth is this? Iron Man already knew through Jarvis's scan that the ferocious monster in front of him was composed of pure energy. Apart from that, there were no other flesh and blood organs. This thing shouldn't have appeared at all, it's totally unreasonable. Whatever it is, we just crush it. Captain Steve opened his mouth to cheer. The few companions around me all agreed. The best way to eliminate fear. Nothing like crushing fear. Avengers in full force. Captain Steve took off the shield and led his companions towards the blocking beast in front of him. No matter how many people you face, reunion has always been able to go together. What is not about martial ethics? This is about teamwork. Hawkeye's arrows and Stark's missiles hit the target one after another, but after the explosion, the ground turned scorched black, but the thunder and lightning unicorn seemed to have taken a tonic, releasing blue lightning under the dark clouds. Captain Steve's shield soon arrived and hit the Keelin hard. But it was like hitting a wave of water. Instead, he was knocked back a few steps by the reaction force. Ordinary physical attacks have no effect on him. Black Widow held the dagger in her hand and stepped aside, obviously not getting any benefits. Iron Man Tony was suspended in midair, already frowning. In the past battles, they had never encountered such an opponent. I was in trouble for a while. Spider-Demon Peter was dumbfounded. He watched dumbly as the Avengers members in front of him rushed up, and then were bounced away. From being so fierce to falling in all directions, the whole process only lasted for tens of seconds. Peter rubbed his face, trying to take a closer look at the battle situation. Then, he saw an even more exaggerated scene. The thunder and lightning unicorn's body was full of light, carrying a thunderstorm from the sky. After the countless thunder and lightning surged out from the clouds, they gathered around the thunder and lightning unicorn, adding texture to its already lifelike body. The hair was swaying in the wind. The lightning unicorn roared and hit Captain Steve first. Crack. Even though he was curled up and leaning against the sound-absorbing shield, his arms were still scorched black by the thunderstorm, and he fainted as soon as his eyes turned white. Team leader, Hawkeye exclaimed and wanted to step forward to rescue him, but was dragged away by the more sensible Black Widow. Flesh and blood cannot resist lightning. And poor Captain Steve. Due to the influence of his extraordinary physique, even after he fainted, he was still twitching, causing his limbs to move in coordinated ly, making him look extremely ghostly. Iron Man should have the strongest mobility while suspended in midair. But what a coincidence. A thunderbolt fell from the clouds and hit his mecha directly. Dee. News of energy overload kept ringing out. Tony hurriedly raised his hand and fired at the house not far in front of him. Boom. Half the house collapsed under the attack of the energy cannon in his palm. This terrifying destructive power is no less than that of the Spider-Demon Peter just now. And through the performance of this superhero, it is a bit more dramatic. Did you film the superhero destroying residential buildings wantonly? April asked her partner beside her. I even have photos of Captain Steve lying on the ground twitching. Partner Fern said excitedly. The current photographer was completely impressed by April. Recalling that I was unwilling to come to the center of the battlefield just now, I wanted to slap myself twice. As the saying goes, wealth is found in danger. How can you gain something if you don't take risks? If this kind of black material video about superheroes is released, it will definitely cause an uproar. At that time, not only April, the host, will benefit from it, but Fern, as the photographer, will also be able to get a share of the pie. Promotion. Salary increase. A beautiful tomorrow is waving towards him. Vern looked at the deflated superheroes in front of him. Not to mention how happy he was, he wished he could take more pictures of them deflating. In this way, the news will be more interesting. Thunder and lightning roared, as if a god had descended into the world. Under the influence of terrifying thunderstorms. Not to mention Hell's Kitchen. Even the other side of the island across Manhattan saw this scene. And this naturally attracted the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles who wanted to follow Liz-On. I saw Master Splinter emerging from the sewer first. He was wearing a black robe, covering his rat head, leaving only his deep eyes, looking towards the center of the thunderstorm with enthusiasm. Leo, the eldest of the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, also climbed out, followed by the second, third, and fourth brothers. These brothers all wore masks, carried weapons, and stood ready. Set off. For the legendary ninja way. Master Splinter held the ninja stick, pointed the top part toward the clouds, and then swung it down hard. Swish, swish, swish. These people were all running quickly through the city. Their speed was so fast that ordinary people could only see shadows passing by. But take a closer look. But no trace could be found anymore. Wow, New York is so cool. Waifu couldn't help but roared, looking like a wild horse running wild. Even if he got a stick from Master Mouse, he wouldn't remember it for a long time. Donnie is very motivated. He has always been very interested in such weird things. This time, the legendary Ninja Dao has caught his interest. According to this instrument monitoring, we will find the target soon. Already. Only Na-Maki was worried. His pursuit of Ninja was not very strong. On the contrary, he was a little afraid of the massacre and prayed that he would never encounter him in this place. Right in the center of this building, at the top of a high-rise building overlooking the entire New York City, 2 figures quietly emerged. They were none other than Liz-On and Slaughter. At this time, the appearance of the massacre had undergone some drastic changes. If he was a bit like a dark descendant killer before, now he has grown 3 times stronger and turned into a bloodthirsty berserker. His pair of knives also changed from the previous slender shape to a large and thick machete. Just then this little guy said in a milky voice, "Sir, what do you need me to do?" Liz-On pointed to the mall and said, "Bring me a cup of milk tea, and some French fries. I want to watch a show." Slaughter was a little confused after hearing this, and obviously did not expect such a demand. "You're really worthy of being an adult." Zong 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 completed the tasks assigned by Liz-On. Even though his devilish muscular appearance could stop a child from crying at night, he still rushed into the shopping mall without hesitation. Screams and panic immediately spread around, especially those young and beautiful white women who were leaning against the wall and shivering, completely losing their dazzling appearance in the past. This monster won't kill me, right?" In the crowd, the girl with light blonde hair was curled up and leaning against the wall. As she glanced sideways from the corner of her eye, she saw the massacre getting closer and closer to her direction. Jessica Jones's heart is already hanging. Just when she turned pale with fright. But Tu-Ba passed by her, gestured to the milk tea shop in a milky voice and said, "Give me a cup of the best milk tea in your shop." Jones was stunned for a long time. No matter how much she thought, she still didn't understand that the huge amounts of monster actually had a childlike pronunciation. And while she was shocked, but I also saw the weirdo patting his head with a broad hand knife and muttering, "Can you give me another order of French fries?" Crazy, crazy. Jones was shocked by these words. No matter how she thinks about it, I never thought that this huge amount of humanoid monsters actually came here to shop. Isn't this equivalent to having 98K in one hand and whiskey in the other on the battlefield? Jones couldn't help turning his head and looked at the carnage a few more times, as if he wanted to carve this scene into his mind. And while she was secretly watching, she even heard a sentence that shocked her. "I don't know if adults will like it." I saw Show packing the milk tea and French fries very lightly, and even received a little gift from the store. However, he did not show joy, but his heart was in his throat. I was afraid that Li Zan would be dissatisfied. After all, he is his reborn parent. Clang! Just as he was meditating on the massacre, the long knife in his hand lightly scratched the ground. The originally smooth and neat tiles shattered. And the blade doesn't stop there. It went deep into the soil. It is unimaginable that if this sharp weapon fell on a person, his blood would definitely be splattered on the spot. Jones was also stunned, and her thoughts were also coming and going. Such a powerful weirdo is actually just a subordinate. I really don't know how powerful the ability he talks about is. At this time, Jessica Jones has not yet obtained superpowers, nor has she suffered any major changes. She just looks like a young girl. That's why, when she was involved in the super incident for the first time, the impression was particularly profound. The Avengers are in dire straits. You must know that thunder and lightning in nature are extremely violent. If it were not so, no one would call lightning strikes thunder punishment. It means punishment from God. Just after the thunder and lightning unicorn struck 3 times, Captain Steve had completely fainted, and Hawkeye was also so shocked that he couldn't even hold the bow and arrow. Especially, Black Widow's short hair also exploded. Like a hedgehog ball. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff exhaled a breath of black air. Even though she is the strongest female agent cultivated by the Red House, she cannot withstand the dimension-reducing blow of this thunder and lightning. Able to dodge constantly, able to survive on the battlefield. He is already extremely skilled, how dare he expect too much? At the scene, the only person with resistance ability was Tony Stark. He wore a suit of armor and was able to convert the power of thunder and lightning into energy, so he was able to deal with this thunderstorm. However, repeated overload releases have brought this steel suit into a fully loaded state. If it continues, it will most likely lead to an overload explosion. If my Iron Legion hadn't been completely destroyed, if the satellite cannon hadn't needed to be recharged. Iron Man looked at the Thunder Unicorn with a face full of reluctance, but he could only sigh helplessly. I wouldn't have ended up in this dilemma. When the spider demon Peter saw this, his eyes shone with excitement. He had been beaten up by the members of the Avengers and almost died. Now is the time to beat up the drowned dog. Venom, how are you recovering? Peter asked. Do you have the strength to fight again? If it's to defeat these fools, I'll be happy to accompany you. The black symbiote squirmed, condensing a skull face on Peter's shoulder. Then let's attack. Peter rubbed his scarred body, gritted his teeth and let the venom cover it, and then flew out. No matter when, able to beat up opponents. It's always worth the effort. Bang bang bang. Spider Demon Peter was the first to find Captain Steve. Among the Avengers, the one he dislikes the most is this hypocrite. You talk so much about justice and protection, bah, disgusting. He slapped the handsome face that symbolized free will twice. And these 2 blows were extremely forceful. Captain Steve's face quickly swelled up, looking like a pig's head. Poor Captain. When Eagle Eye saw this, he was filled with indignation and squeezed 2 tears from his eyes. As the only ordinary person among the Avengers, he has been conquered by Captain Steve's charisma. In his opinion, Steve was humiliated. It was like he was humiliated. But Hawkeye is just an ordinary person, and all he can do is use his archery skills to take revenge. Call out. Hawkeye shot an arrow at Spider-Man. At that critical moment, with lightning speed, Peter lifted Captain Steve up and held him in front of him. Crack! The arrow pierced Captain Steve's shoulder, and the severe pain caused him to wake up from his coma. When he looked down, he saw that he was hit by Hawkeye's flying arrow, and he felt even more angry. But the spider demon Peter laughed wildly. This is what you call companionship, it's really ridiculous. Crack! At the same time, the Iron Man flying high in the sky was also overwhelmed and fell to the ground. As he raised his head and looked not far away, what caught his eye was the crazy expression of the spider demon. The situation is dangerous. It was just as Tony expected. The spider demon changed its target and rushed towards him. I almost forgot about you. Goo-doo-doo. Going to the theater is such a beautiful thing. Li Zan was leaning on a tall building, drinking milk tea and eating fried chicken, looking far into the distance and taking in everything. And he was humming a little tune and waving his hands, but he was accumulating Peter's favorability, just waiting to get ready to go, not too wonderful. After Blacken, Peter is worthy of the title of Spider Demon. He is ruthless in his attacks and completely loses the righteous and kind-hearted superhero appearance in the past. Iron Man's mask was violently torn open, and Peter's hands have turned into sharp claws covered in venom. Then grab it hard. Zila. Bone-piercing scratches appeared on Tony's face. If it weren't for Peter's desire to torture him, this move alone could kill him. But this act of cutting flesh with a dull knife made Tony feel even more unspeakable humiliation and anger. It was obviously the result that we should have won, but we still lost, a complete defeat. In his opinion, the reptile in front of him could be crushed to death at will. But I didn't expect that I would still be riding on him and be injured by him. What is this? What the hell is this? Tony's eyes widened with anger. He raised his palm to activate the laser cannon and fired it towards Peter. Even if there is a risk of overload explosion. But he still chose to fight back. Boom. The energy beam gathered in the palm of his hand, but in the process of accumulating energy, Peter grabbed him, turned it around and pushed it towards Tony's face. Tony's eyes widened, his feet kept kicking the ground, and he struggled wildly. He didn't want to die by his own weapons. If so, will definitely become the laughingstock of everyone. No, but no matter how much Tony resisted, the palm of his hand was held down by Peter, giving him no chance to stand up. If it were normal times like this, it would be a big deal to stop accumulating energy. But now this armor has encountered a thunderstorm and been severely damaged. Even with Jarvis's adjustments, some functions have failed. Unfortunately, the device that prevents energy storage is broken. Tony's eyes were splitting, and he felt that his life was hanging by a thread at this critical moment. A huge boulder fell from the sky. Spider Demon Peter quickly dodged away. Taking advantage of this opportunity to breathe, Tony turned the back of his hand toward the sky. Boom! Powerful laser cannons rushed out. Under this subsequent force, Tony felt like he was being pressed to the ground, unable to move, and a mouthful of blood came out from his mouth. I've never been as embarrassed as I am today. Iron Man turned his head and looked at the Spider Demon not far away, with fear and trembling remaining on his face. And he actually became afraid of an enemy he had once underestimated. Tony's face turned red with anger and he felt ashamed. What kind of monster are you? Peter turned his head and looked not far away. Right where he was looking, a panting middle-aged man appeared. He was wearing a plaid shirt and black-rimmed eyes. He looked like an honest man, but his arms turned green and turned black. If that's okay, I'd like you to call me Dr. Banner. The man said softly. The next second, his whole body expanded and turned into a green-skinned man who was 3 meters tall. Leave my companions, the green monster roared. Shock waves visible to the naked eye spread out. Peter couldn't help but take a few steps back, and as soon as they met, he was given a slap in the face. What followed was a crazy warning from the spider sense. Obviously, it would be extremely dangerous to fight with the green monster in front of him. It's better, just let it go as soon as it's good. Peter gritted his teeth, glanced deeply at Tony and Captain Steve, and then shot out the spider silk to leave. But don't wait for him to pull away. Then Captain Steve started yelling. This person, who was supposed to be the leader of Free Will, was acting like a madman at this moment, waving his arms and yelling. We must not allow the Spider Demon to leave safely from this place today, otherwise, our Avengers will lose face. Yes, all members of the Avengers Alliance attack. Not only did he fail to stop the super criminal Spider-Man. Instead, he was allowed to destroy an entire street and then leave peacefully. It was such a slap in the face. If things continue like this, the Avengers formed by S.H.I.E.L.D. will no longer be a deterrent. And this will also lead to the entire New York City falling into riots of super criminals. Dr. Banner is naturally a smart man. Even now it's Hulk who dominates the body. Roar! Hulk roared loudly, then took a step forward and jumped to a height of tens of meters, aiming to grab the Spider-Man Peter. But when it comes to dodge ability in the air, Peter is undoubtedly better. Aha! Peter put the soles of his feet on the glass, turned sideways to avoid the inevitable grab, and then the ejected spider silk landed on another building. While the Spider Demon was dodging back and forth, Hulk has no intention of giving up on his capture. As a new member of the Avengers, he urgently needs to show some results to prove his ability. If not, Doesn't it make him look incompetent? Hulk is the most powerful warrior. The green monster struck again and again, and while he was jumping back and forth, he smashed the outer walls and glass of several buildings. During this process, there were also several screams and exclamations from women. Someone will definitely complain about us. Black Widow looked at the Hulk, who was constantly hitting and destroying, and her blood pressure was rising. Director Nick will sort this out. Hawkeye did not panic. Instead, he looked at Hulk's body and praised, just like the legendary god of war. I have long said that Dr. Banner is the most powerful one among us. Captain Steve stood up. Although his face was dark, his eyes were bright. When he takes action, all evil will have nowhere to hide. When he said this, he looked up at Spider-Man in the air. Really, his situation was precarious. And just the next second, the spider demon even screamed, obviously being caught by Hulk. Captain Steve turned his head and looked at his companions, who continued to chatter. This is not only a victory for justice, it will also be a victory for S.H.I.E.L.D. But Captain America, who kept talking, obviously didn't notice that the expressions of his teammates in front of him gradually changed. Captain, you'd better look behind you, Hawkeye said in a panic. What? Captain Steve hasn't reacted yet. Quick, look. Ah! Black Widow screamed, what kind of monster is this? Just when Hulk Banner grabbed Peter Parker and stretched out his hands to tear the little reptile into pieces, an unexpected scene appeared. Just above the sky that should have been cloudy and breezy, purple light spreads. Immediately afterwards, the clouds exploded, and a giant hand reached out from the clouds and clamped down on the Hulk Banner. Hulk is angry. When the green giant was captured by the giant hand that covered the sky, he struggled, but the palm locked him like an iron pincer. He burst into a shocking roar. Can't break free either. Even Peter, the spider demon who should have been caught, was forced to let go. The sharp and scaly claws were none other than the Susano displayed by Li Zan. Originally, when he only had the bloodline of Indra, the power of Susano had not reached such a terrifying level, but after he possessed the bloodline of the sacred tree, the techniques he performed became hundreds of times stronger. After all, the sacred tree is the source of all ninja ways. And Li Zan, who has his bloodline, is equivalent to the incarnation of Tao. When he uses these corresponding tricks, isn't it like a fish in water, like a fish in a bag? Li Zan stretched out his hand and tapped the milk tea lightly, and saw a layer of frost emerging from it. Then he took a big sip into his mouth, glanced sideways at the stunned Avengers not far away, and said, happy. The Slaughter next to him was sitting upright, and he didn't quite understand what his master was doing. Just when he saw his joy. The Slaughter will also be fun. Comfortable. But the Avengers were already stupid. During this day, they first experienced the attack of the spider demon. I also saw Iron Man Tony's satellite cannon. Suffered another thunder and lightning attack. Then a hand came out from the clouds. Has New York City become a base for mutants? Captain Steve's lips trembled and his face darkened, obviously shocked by the thoughts in his heart. Maybe not many people, but just one person. Iron Man Tony no longer had the cynical smile on his face, and spoke with some solemnity. He already felt that whenever he wanted to catch the spider demon Peter in the dark, someone will take action and help him. Just as the Thunder Beast appeared and disappeared so quickly, the only thing it did was cause heavy damage to the members of the Avengers. And let Peter escape smoothly. And as Dr. Banner's reinforcements arrived at the scene, they were about to catch the spider demon again. But there are many branches, and they are caught by that giant hand. If the army is sent to search, there may be some trouble. Captain Steve, maybe, we need to stop hunting down the spider demon, Tony said with a solemn expression. Although he is not willing to give up just yet. But smart people know when to let go. But mediocre people can't see it. Why do we give in to evil? Captain Steve's eyes widened when he heard this, obviously rejecting this statement. Tony seemed to be irritated by this rhetorical question. He stretched out his hand to grab the leader of the men in front of him, pointed to the sky and said, "Why, I have damaged 17 armors and am no longer able to fight anymore. Should I let you fight this monster in the sky? Or should I let that Nick Fury fight? The situation is already very unfavorable for us." Captain Steve originally wanted to say something else, something high-sounding. But when he glanced around at his friends and saw the exhaustion on their faces, the idea that I wanted to fight for something was shattered. Captain Steve lowered his head and said dejectedly, "We lost this battle. I just hope Dr. Banner can break free from that giant hand and come back safely." Hawkeye said, "Don't worry, Dr. Banner is much stronger than we thought." Iron Man Tony stood up again at this moment and said, "I once carried out an encirclement and suppression campaign against Hulk with General Ross. At that time, the military deployed 2 legions of troops and equipped them with combat weapons from Stark Industries, but he was still destroyed by him with overwhelming force." "You mean Dr. Banner once fought a battle with his bare hands?" "Jesus Christ, this is no joke. Perhaps we can expect this companion to create miracles." Hulk is angry. As the giant hand grasped it, he began to struggle. First, the muscles in his arms expanded rapidly, and then the muscles in his back and legs swelled. In a short period of time, he became no less than the 5-meter Devil Muscleman. This expansion of body shape also greatly enhanced Hulk's strength, and the fierce friction even caused some of the scales on the palm to peel off. Roar! Hulk roared again, and as his anger intensified, he felt that the restrained palms were becoming more and more powerless. And he could escape from trouble at any time and at any time. Hulk fell into a state of rage. When he raged again, the palm of his hand had become shaky. Even Peter, the spider demon absorbent on the wall, felt more and more that the green monster in front of him was becoming more and more threatening to him. If we talk about before, Peter still had the confidence to dodge in front of him. Now, Peter just wanted to run away from this place like crazy and no longer had the courage to face it. But just when he was about to leave this place, an unexpected gift appeared. Maybe I shouldn't call it a gift. An eye appeared in the sky. Those evil, weird, absurd eyes that seemed to be incompatible with reality emerged. It is the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. The moment these eyes appeared, there was also a man wearing a black robe, wrapped in it, who suddenly appeared in midair. His figure is like a ghost, but his posture is as ethereal as a fairy. He stood in front of the violent Hulk, as if he would be torn apart by the rage warriors in front of him if he was not careful. But the mysterious man raised his head, and at the moment Hulk looked at him, his spirit was pulled into the Tsukuyomi space. This is a land located in boundless darkness, and what he sees is desolate. But as his spirit enters it, he finds that he has regained his sanity, and he retreats cautiously. "Who are you?" Dr. Banner said, looking at the man in black robe in front of him. "Me, you can call me the Bloody Hand Butcher, or the God of the Wind." Li Zan counted on his fingers, then glanced at the man wearing glasses in front of him and said, "Names don't matter. What matters should be, Dr. Banner, do you like your current life? Do you like the feeling of being separated from your girlfriend and turning into a monster?" "Of course I don't like it." Dr. Banner responded instinctively, but then thought of something again, and his face became wary. Just a second ago, he was trapped by the giant hand. But the next second I arrived at this place, there was a strange atmosphere everywhere. Obviously the guy in front of me is not a good person. Let me out quickly. Dr. Banner rushed forward, stretched out his hand and grabbed the collar of the man in front of him. "Relax, my friend," the man said casually, but Dr. Banner still looked excited. "My companion, you really grieve me." Li Zan shook his head. "Then maybe I have to give you some pain to understand what reality is." He snapped his fingers. Crack. The next moment, this was a huge change in the dead space, and it suddenly turned into a prison. In front of Dr. Banner were ancient torture instruments from before the Middle Ages, and behind him were some famous torture instruments since World War II. For example, tiger bench, operating table, gallows, etc. "We have a long time, we can talk slowly." Li Zan spread his hands and said nonchalantly, but the coldness in his words made Dr. Banner tremble. But the next second, screams sounded. Dr. Banner is trapped in a cycle of torture. The effect of this Tsukuyomi space is extraordinary. As long as the caster pulls the opponent's soul into it, he can control it and deal merciless blows to him. In addition, Dr. Banner was an ordinary scientific researcher, but he turned into a monster after being exposed to gamma-ray radiation. After experiencing the second punishment, he collapsed on the ground, his face pale and his expression dull. Li Xuanzai raised a question again. If I can help you reunite with your girlfriend, and even reconcile to some extent, will you be willing to leave S.H.I.E.L.D? After hearing this, Dr. Banner looked very excited and was already attracted by the future he described. If we say at the beginning, Liaison did not resort to lynching. Dr. Banner still doesn't believe that the person in front of him has this kind of ability. But after he experienced the pain personally, on the contrary, he became more convinced. Tell me your method first, Dr. Banner asked. I can seal Hulk's soul, Liaison said with interest. At the moment the complex pattern in his eyes reappeared. Roar. In this supposedly dead space, suddenly there was a roar. The sound was like coming from the ancient abyss, carrying a terrifying aura of hostility. It's Hulk. Dr. Banner was shocked to hear the familiar voice. Dr. Banner began to waver. Although the treatment he received after joining S.H.I.E.L.D. was not bad, but it doesn't satisfy his spiritual needs. After all, as long as he is emotionally excited, he will turn into a green monster and cannot even perform intimate behaviors. He glanced at everything around him, his eyes showing imagination and confusion. He didn't want to be a superhero. What he wanted most was to be able to control the monsters in his body one day, master his emotions, and meet Betty again. Can you tell me your choice now? My choice is to agree. Dr. Banner finally gave in to his deepest desires. He couldn't wait to see Betty. To this end, even if the man in front of me is a devil, he is also willing to exchange. As for breaking away from S.H.I.E.L.D, I have only joined this organization for a few days. Dr. Banner doesn't have many deep emotions. We have to trust Dr. Banner. Outside world, everyone in the Avengers Alliance is still looking forward to it. I hope this new team can create miracles. Immortal magic. Lock of the Golem. Liaison formed a seal with his hands, and as the purple energy wave surged behind him, the virtual heretic demon appeared, and then countless chakras condensed into chains and plunged into the earth, and then quickly pulled out, and then what followed was that the dark green monster was pulled and restrained in midair. That's Rage's Hulk. Dr. Banner, next, I need you to clear your mind and not resist. Otherwise, not only will the seal fail, but you will also become an idiot. Dr. Banner nodded repeatedly after hearing this, and then closed his eyes. And the next second, the countless chains condensed with chakra penetrated his abdomen. The severe pain came instantly. Dr. Banner was shaking with pain, but he did not dare to move, obviously afraid that the seal would fail this time. The pain dissipated after a few seconds. Liaison moved very quickly and sealed him to Dr. Banner's lower abdomen. Did it work? Very successful, and it overfulfilled the task. Now, even if you want to complete the transformation, it is impossible. Liaison looked at the almost perfect technique he had completed, and couldn't help feeling secretly happy. After being sealed by this technique, even a powerful tailed beast cannot escape. Doing so would be equivalent to breaking an arm of S.H.I.E.L.D. Dr. Banner doesn't yet understand his potential. How could Liaison not know? Among the many difficulties that the Avengers will face in the future, the only two generals who can use them as strategic weapons are Thor and Hulk. But now, after Hulk was sealed, the Avengers' ability to fight danger is greatly reduced. Let's see what tricks those sanctimonious and superficial hypocrites can play. And the outside world. When Dr. Banner once again took over the dominant position in his body, the originally violent blood gradually calmed down. But that strong body is also shrinking. This is Hulk's power fading. Dr. Banner's face changed drastically, and at this moment, the magic hand that originally held him gradually disappeared. Dr. Banner screamed and fell from the sky. Before the power completely dissipated, he fell to the ground. Click. His foot sprained, and a sharp pain hit him, causing his legs to loosen and he fell to the ground. Peter, the spider demon, felt happy when he saw the opponent he had defeated met such an embarrassing end. However, when he turned around and found the mysterious man floating in front of him, he became a little restrained again. Hello, mysterious strong man. I am Peter Parker. Thank you very much for saving me. And thank you for slapping those fools in the face, well done. Peter told, and the system prompt came as promised. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the Spider Demon's Fury and starting to calculate rewards. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning the Adventures of Jackie Chan, Army of Shadows. Ding, it's detected that Peter is respectful and fearful of you. This reward will be doubled as a critical hit. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Naruto, the Art of 100 Heroes, Strange Power Fist. Ding! Congratulations to the host for getting Hokage, 9 Llamas. The Black Shadow Core is not bad. We can ask some of our younger brothers to do odd jobs. Lee Zan took a few glances and felt it was better than nothing. As for the Hyakuya no Jutsu, it is an ability developed by Tsunade based on her own talent. Just a pair of fists. It can break through everything. It can be called a good method. But the subsequent acquisition of the 9 Hokage llamas was truly an unexpected surprise. Who doesn't like cute pets that can be masturbated? Please make it super cute. In the world of Naruto, the 9 tails is the closest entity to the 10 tails. It can be cute and attackable, and the energy in its body is almost endless. In the process of merging with Naruto, the human power pillar, it gradually developed the half-tailed beast form, the tailed tail. Beast transformation, 9 tails chakra mode, 9 llama mode, 9 llama sage mode, and the powerful 6 paths sage mode, etc. Naruto still only has the bloodline of Asura. But Lee Zan is different. He obtained part of the blood of the sacred tree. If we say that the bloodline he acquired previously laid a good foundation for him, then this tailed beast 9 llama will greatly shorten his growth rate and enhance his strength. After all, when Julama was not sealed, he had endless power accumulated in his body, and he could blow up several mountains by just spitting out an energy bomb at will. Wouldn't that allow me to become a mobile fort? Lee Zan felt extremely happy in his heart. Sufficient milk supply. High damage. The blood volume is thick. These advantages add up. This greatly enhances his error tolerance during combat. In addition, the chakra of 9 llamas also has the ability of self-healing. That would make him a nightmare for opponents. Spider Demon Peter was a little frightened. After he thanked the man in black robe in front of him, he did not respond. But he didn't dare to act rashly, fearing that he would do something to offend him. It might make this adult angry. The Hulk is a lesson learned from the past. From Peter's point of view, this opponent who could not be defeated at all was easily controlled by him. It was simply too terrifying. My lord, can you tell me your name? Spider Demon Peter asked in a flattering tone. Holy Lord. Lee Zan opened his mouth to respond, just as he looked up at Peter. The original hood of the robe was taken off. What caught his eye was a green-faced face with fangs that looked like an evil ghost. And after this man snapped his fingers. Aha! Countless ninja regiments hidden in the shadows emerged, like stars holding the moon, surrounding the two men. This sudden scene caught Peter off guard, and when he observed carefully, he couldn't detect any breathing movement from the ninja corps in front of him. They were like corpses dug up from a cold graveyard. Just looking at it, it will make people feel weak. If it were just a dead thing, it wouldn't be able to make Peter in front of him feel scared, but when the members of the ninja corps raised their heads, what came into view was gray-blue skin and blood-red eyes, filled with death and desolation. Although the appearance of ghost ninja is similar to that of ordinary Japanese ninjas, they are stronger. They also master various ancient ninja tactics and weapons and equipment, and have highly keen skills and combat effectiveness. They are proficient in karate and light kung fu, and are as light as a swallow, good at long-range attacks and melee combat. Just a few of them won't be able to cause trouble to powerful superheroes. But if there are hundreds? But what if there are thousands? If the human C tactic is used, let alone Peter the Spider, any other superhero would be upset. The Spider Demon Peter became more and more respectful. Above the ground, when Dr. Banner fell to the ground, Captain Steve rushed over first, and when he reached out to help the man in front of him, he did not forget to greet him. But the man in front of him seemed to be in a state of confusion. He didn't respond. The guy who claimed to be the god of the wind didn't lie to him. His brutal side was sealed away. Dr. Banner's eyes showed joy. He didn't look like he had just lost the battle. When Iron Man Tony saw this, he was a little confused and asked, Dr. Banner, where is that huge hand in the sky? Why did it suddenly disappear? Do you know what happened? I don't know. Dr. Banner looked around, not daring to look directly. It was the shooter Hawkeye who came out to save the situation, as long as Dr. Banner can come back safely. Tony, look, you scared him. As soon as these words came out, Everyone thought it was because Dr. Banner was not good at communicating with others because of his personality. It didn't extend to the level of him lying. Dr. Banner also secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but then felt a little ashamed. From the moment he chose to seal the Hulk away, it is already destined to break with the Avengers organization. After all, Director Nick recruited him because he wanted to use his powerful power to fight darkness and evil. If you can't transform, it will definitely not be accepted. I have to start planning to escape from S.H.I.E.L.D. This man, who seemed to be very honest on the surface, was also making a small calculation in his mind. Between tall buildings, Master Splinter held the ninja stick in his hand, and after crossing a building, he landed on the roof. As he looked out, what came into view was a densely packed, black shadow-like ninja corps. They seemed to be well equipped and dressed as ninjas, and they felt a sense of intimacy. Almost instantly, the Mouse Master confirmed that he was right. And this is the person they are looking for. Leo was the second to cross the high platform. When he saw the graceful Lizon in front of him, he couldn't help but feel awe. But when Waifu fell from the sky, he rolled on the rooftop. After standing up, he exclaimed, "Wow, this is really cool, there are so many ninjas." Mikey's nerves were highly tense. As he glanced at the many ninjas in front of him, he was still thinking, if they are called, maybe these turtles are not enough to kill them. And just when he was full of crisis, a chance glance. It made Mikey panic even more. I seem to see a red devil. There are enemies, Mikey screamed. The next second, the four turtles and mice gathered together and formed a look of fighting the enemy head on. "Where is the enemy?" Master Splinter asked, his face serious. "Just right there." Mikey was in shock, and he raised his finger tremblingly and pointed forward. Everyone looked towards the tall building to meet his gaze. But no enemies were found. It turned out to be a false alarm. Waifu put the forks he picked up back on his waist, fiddled with them and said, "It's good this time. Don't coax us next time." "I don't." Mikey glared angrily at his friends around him, and said emphatically, "I really saw the Red Murderer. He was near the balcony, but he disappeared in the blink of an eye." Waifu didn't trust him and laughed, "You coward, you're hallucinating." Mikey was furious and rushed forward, preparing to start a fight. "Stop arguing, don't forget the purpose of our coming here." The inventor Donnie in the group of four stood up and stopped the brothers' quarrel. Then he pointed at the mysterious man suspended in the air and said, "You see, Spider-Man, who has been in the limelight recently, is also trying to please this man. He is our target. How many turtle people are there? And a big rat as tall as one person." Opposite the high-rise building, when the spider demon Peter saw the unexpected visitors, he was a little confused. In addition, with my strong hearing ability, I vaguely heard some words such as "follow" and "adult." Peter looked at the man in front of him, thinking more about his mysterious background. Perhaps this is also my opportunity. The expression on Spider Demon Peter's face gradually became subtle, and then he vowed to say that he owed the man in front of him his life. If there is anything needed, be sure not to decline. Although his ability is not very strong, it does have some merits. Lizon didn't feel like there was anything special about him. At most, he was just an actor who played the role of the Holy Lord. Just please, doesn't it look super cool when he controls the Shadow Core? It is simply more majestic than the original Holy Lord. Then, what did the spider demon in front of me come up with? He actually came forward shamelessly and confidently. It seems that not assigning some tasks to him is like failing his hard work. Lizon only felt that he was stuck. He could only pretend to put up the score and say, "Hell's Kitchen is suitable for you." As soon as these words came out, Spider Demon Peter breathed a sigh of relief, followed by a grand thank you, and then jumped down from the tall building and jumped towards the distance. If this Spider Demon Peter knew that the man in front of him was the butcher who had beaten him to shame, maybe it could raise his blood pressure. Tap tap tap. Just as the Spider Demon took off, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles jumped and landed in front of him. The highly respected Big Mouse stood up first, faced Lizon and introduced himself with his hands raised, and also told the story of the four turtle sons behind him, all of whom were very capable and were all masters. Finally, I felt that the preparation was almost complete, so I said that I wanted to follow him and learn the way of ninja. After Lizon heard this, He felt numb again. What's not good about learning? Do you have to learn what comes with the bloodline of the God tree? These are all tax on. But looking at their eager looks, he couldn't bear to refuse, although he also thought about gathering people to attack the Avengers. But he hasn't released a recruitment announcement yet. Result: this 1 or 2, all delivered to your door. Are all these superheroes buy one get one free? Li Zan felt powerless to complain. But it's okay to come. Someone who comes to your door asking for help. The initiative fell to Li Zan, and as he was familiar with the ways of controlling people, he also knew that most people would not cherish success if it came easily. Only after you have put in the hard work and fought for it, the results you get will be hard-won. Also at this moment, April and his companions who were hiding in the dark and secretly taking pictures were also discovered by the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and they were confronting each other. Li Zan pointed at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in front of him and said with a taste of chicken blood. Where the leaves are flying, fire is also endless. The light of the fire will continue to illuminate the way forward and let the new leaves sprout. The inheritance of Ninja Dao is based on this. You want to learn Taoism? Let me see how determined you are. What do you mean? Master Splinter looked excited, then turned to look at the Avengers, and said, I understand. He happily jumped off the tall building with the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Delete all the bad information you filmed. Captain Steve stepped forward and said with a serious face. In this battle, the members of the Avengers suffered losses and lost the battle. Naturally, he doesn't want to be reported by the media. As a journalist, what I pursue is truth. So what if you are superheroes? Can you bully people? April blocked the camera and cameraman behind her like a fighting lioness. Captain, don't say anything, let me smash it. Hawkeye shook his head indifferently. As an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he has done a lot of work sneaking behind enemy lines, let alone just bullying a little girl. There is no pressure at all. How dare you? After April heard this, her expression became more excited. She's not a softie either. What if you were really greedy for life and afraid of death? Why did you just come to the center of the battle to take pictures? April is a fighter. Although her identity as a reporter did not cultivate her agility, she also cultivated her integrity. Pissed. What kind of professional ethics does a female reporter have? Is it enough to give you $100,000? Not enough. How about $200,000? Or $300,000? Iron Man Tony laughed and used his usual methods. That's throwing money at people. As he continued to increase his efforts, the photographer became somewhat interested. After all, he works so hard not just to make money. But April protected the camera like a baby, and said, no way, we won't give it to you. No matter how much money you give, it won't do. This is our dream. Your dream is to blacken superheroes. Black Widow did not give the female reporter a good look, and took out 2 daggers from behind her back. If this is the case, you will have to suffer a little. Chapter 31. If the male superheroes at the scene still had idle baggage and were unwilling to attack a weak woman, Black Widow stood up and said that she had no pressure. She came from the top agent training school, Red Room. No emotion will affect her correct judgment. Black Widow turned the dagger around in her hand, turned the back of the knife outward, and rushed towards the female reporter in front of her. Not spoiled at all. Dr. Banner in the crowd shouted, please, don't fight. But unfortunately, he didn't listen to his instructions. I'm going to suffer, I'm going to suffer. When the cameraman saw something was wrong, he wanted to beg for mercy, but Natasha Romanoff had already rushed to him. We can. Before Fern could finish a word, she knocked him out with a flying kick. She smiled and turned her attention to the female reporter beside her. April was a little panicked, but in the face of pressure, she still maintained a confrontational attitude. Yes, no, will, give up, defeat, aha. The Black Widow's response was also very decisive. She wanted to knock the woman in front of her to the ground. What if you are blocked from completing your goals? Of course, clear the target. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff has always been like this, and will continue to carry out this behavior to the end. April looked desperate. She watched as the Black Widow rode towards her face, and then slashed her neck with a hand knife. Wow, but what was unexpected was that Black Widow flew backwards. Captain Steve looked shocked. What's going on? Hawkeye also rubbed his eyes and said with some uncertainty, is this female reporter hiding something secret? No, Another uninvited guest is coming. Iron Man Tony looked solemn. Through the scan of his armor, he had already noticed a black figure flashing past. If you have the guts to cause trouble, don't you have the guts to come out? Tony scoffed. The words just fell. Call out. A stone hit him in front of him, making a shallow pit in the solid ground. Members of the Avengers are threatening female reporters with coercion and inducement. This is really shocking to us. 5 figures gradually walked out of the darkness. The 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles looked taller and more powerful. But they followed the Thin Mouse Master respectfully. It seems that he is the backbone. It turns out there are still a few freaks. Let me see some mutated mice and some mutated turtles. It's really surprising. Tony's tongue was as venomous as ever, but his eyes said, I'm very interested. Although he is a genius inventor, his main research is high technology, and he prefers technological creations. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in front of them are more like a miracle of a great leap forward in life. All of them are highly research intensive. A Spider-Man escaped on the front foot, and several humanoid turtles and mice followed behind. This is really God helping me. Tony pressed down the steel mask, raised his hands towards them, and threatened. If you give up resistance and surrender, I will give you a decent chance. Captain Steve also quickly said helpfully, you have attacked superheroes, and according to the regulations of S.H.I.E.L.D, we will take revenge on you. If you don't want to, surrender as soon as possible. How shameless. Female reporter April's face turned red with anger. Previously, when the members of the Avengers attacked her, they showed no regard for morality or law. But after it was Black Widow's turn to be beaten away, she actually talked about benevolence and morality. What a robber. They are simply bandits. Then hit. Master Splinter recalled what Li Zan had told him, then he raised the ninja stick in his hand and said, we are not used to superheroes like you who are sanctimonious and say one thing but do the other behind their backs. And the next second, but Leo, the boss of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, rushed out with a pair of katanas. He targeted the most arrogant Tony. Wei Fu spun the iron fork and also chose Captain Steve as his opponent. Mikey and Donnie each picked Black Widow and Hawkeye to fight. But the Mouse Master who led the team did not immediately choose his opponent. Instead, he walked up to the female reporter with a ninja stick in his hand and said with a kind expression, long time no see. Little O'Neill. Who are you? April looked into those wise eyes and couldn't help but wonder, does she still have any interactions with these guys? Have you forgotten? It was you who rescued us from that laboratory fire. Master Splinter said briefly, but the female reporter in front of him was dumbfounded. As for the fire in the laboratory, it did happen more than 10 years ago, but at that time, what she released were 4 ordinary little turtles and a mouse. Now those who come back to repay their kindness are obviously superheroes, right? So, I contributed to the growth of these superheroes to some extent. April was shocked and angry, and also expressed shock at her unintentional actions. What follows is strong honor and pride. Her father was not just a scientist who could only talk empty words. He had unparalleled talent and had actually developed a potion that could enable living beings to unlock intelligence. These living weirdos in front of you are the best evidence. Chang. With the swing of Wave's iron fork, Captain Steve was defeated continuously, even though his Superman's physique was enough to crush a group of ordinary people. But the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in front of me are all drug addicts, and they are as good as several super soldiers. Coupled with the continuous battles, even with a 50-50 aura, Captain Steve was still in a state of exhaustion, and being able to hold on through gritted teeth at this moment could be called an iron will. Clang. Later, Captain Steve was accidentally kicked out and fell to the ground. When he raised his head, the cold knife and fork was pressed against his chest. If you don't want to die, tell them to stop. I will not give in to evil. Captain Steve acted very courageously. Clang. Wei Fu was also very brave and kicked Steve 3 meters away. Then I will satisfy you. Tony was caught in a tough fight. Although he had Jarvis's analysis of the battle trajectory of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle in front of him and could fight back, he was thick-skinned and had 2 swords in his hands, so he could withstand more beatings than Captain Steve. After dozens of attacks in a row, there was still no winner. This armor was also seriously damaged, and those firepower crushing tricks couldn't be used, so they could only be used up. Aha! Out of thin air. But a stick fell down. Only then did he land on the elbow of the steel armor, and launched several consecutive attacks. Different from those fledgling little turtles, this Master Mouse is a weather-beaten warrior. His fighting skills have been refined over time, and he has long reached the level of using skill to overcome force. Aha! The armor on Tony's hand automatically disintegrated and exploded. Before he could scream in surprise, the ninja stick swung down repeatedly and broke his mask. Tony looked horrified. When he looked at the rat man in front of him again, the contempt and neglect in his eyes were no longer there, but instead showed fear. How is it possible that the armor you built was disintegrated with just a stick? Before this incident happened, he must have thought someone was talking nonsense. But this absurd incident actually happened to me. Does he feel like he's going crazy? And it was at this moment that Master Splinter said, "If you do something wrong, you will be punished by standing. And in order to follow you, sir, please help us, obey and be punished." Fake squid, I punish. Even though he was at a disadvantage, Iron Man Tony still maintained his high profile. And just when he was strong, showing the arrogance that belongs to superheroes. Leo, the boss of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, showed pity on his face. He glanced up and down at the man in front of him, thinking of himself in the past. The four turtles would not be easy to worry about, if they were not taught by Master Mouse with sticks, and will not become sensible. I have to say, it really hurt when the stick was thrown on my body. I just hope that the man in front of me can survive half a minute. Call out. Master Splinter had already raised the ninja stick in his hand, and he said coldly, "I like people like you, hard-boned." The next second, the stick was swung down hard. It hit the Iron Man on the butt. It's like beating a disobedient child. In this regard, Master Mouse said he was too skilled. In just 10 seconds, Iron Man Tony's face changed from fair to red, to blue, and finally turned completely dark. He is the most important person. Even when he picks up women, he only picks those who have appeared in Time magazine. Now he was beaten by a mouse, which was like throwing his self-esteem to the ground and rubbing him. With a cold face and clenched teeth, he was already resisting with a cold attitude. But Master Splinter didn't want to make things easier for Iron Man. Instead, he waved the ninja stick in his hand. With such a good attitude, even the bystander Leo couldn't help but tremble with fear. He once again recalled being by his own family. The fear of being dominated by the master. The man who had subdued Captain Steve was also leisurely watching the show. As he glanced around, he saw the Iron Man being chased all over the ground with a stick by Master Mouse. So what if Tony could bite the bullet? This is a filial son born from a stick. Master Mouse is a master at beating his son. April couldn't help but laugh. Originally, she was threatened by these sanctimonious hypocrites, and the mute couldn't tell the pain of eating Coptus. But now with the appearance of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, help her breathe a sigh of relief. Even the two-level reversal made those superheroes feel frustrated. Kaka. The camera kept taking these pictures. The female reporter did not forget to say, "I let you bully me. I will definitely retaliate against you." Just ran for a while. Tony leaned against the wall exhausted and looked down. When he saw the bruises all over his body, there was no indifferent expression on his face anymore. Instead, there were only traces of frustration and tears after being beaten. This was also it's so bullying. How big is he? Even my own father never beat me like that. Why should this rat man be? Swipe. That stick doesn't have eyes. As Master Splinter approached again, he quickly swung the stick, which frightened Tony's face. Finally, he seemed to have made up his mind, and then he lowered his head and said aggrievedly, "I was wrong." "Where did you go wrong?" Master Splinter did not stop there, but pressed forward step by step. Tony was furious, but the situation was stronger than others, so he could only lower his head and said, "I shouldn't use my power to bully others, intimidate and lure that female reporter. Now that I know I was wrong." Master Splinter swung his stick again. "Then why don't you apologize? Do you still need to be heartbroken to kill someone?" Tony felt extremely wrong. After all, billionaires like him usually solve troubles by spreading money. Have you sincerely admitted your mistakes today? Are you going to continue to make things difficult? Is there any royal law here? Is there any law here? Tony's eyes were so wide open that he looked at the female reporter and forced a smile on his lips. "I'm sorry. As soon as these words came out, even Hawkeye and Black Widow, who were still fighting, were stunned. God knows, when Tony didn't join S.H.I.E.L.D., even if he was poisoned, he never showed such a posture. Is that filial son emerges from under the stick really so clever? Just as these two people looked at each other, he was knocked to the ground again by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle duo, and the sharp weapon was pressed against his neck. From fighting the Avengers to losing, the entire process lasts less than 3 minutes. This will be another battle worthy of being recorded in history. It's a pity that Captain Steve fell into a coma. Otherwise, he would have gritted his teeth and said the famous saying, "I can fight you all day long. I could literally play all day." Master Splinter holds a ninja stick in his hand and has an aura of contempt for everything. He's been playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for 10 years. The hand holding the stick has long been as cold as my heart. As for Dr. Banner, the only good guy at the scene, he was not beaten, but after witnessing these atrocities, he also felt some emotion in his heart, that is, never offend a woman at any time, especially the woman who has a backstage. Because she doesn't know when 4 turtles and mice will appear to stand up for her. The invincible Avengers were defeated once again. But they relied on their tenacious perseverance to get up from the ground. Don't think this is an easy thing. After experiencing Master Splinter's stick education, even those mutated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had to kneel, let alone them humans. Iron Man Tony was undoubtedly the most severely beaten. Because he had the strongest willpower and was determined to fight the evil to the end, he was beaten until he cried and howled on the ground. Although Hawkeye was much better than Tony, he was still shaken by the beating and did not dare to recall what had just happened. Not to mention Black Widow and Captain America. Because they had been injected with potions to enhance their physical strength, they were under intensive care and could only lie on the ground, unable to even move. Dr. Banner became the only active partner at the scene. It was an unusual back and forth. Not only did he have to help him back and forth, he also had to make phone calls and seek support. In the process, he did not forget to scold everyone, "Let you talk about it. Listen, you have to bully others, now it's better, 1 or 2, they are all getting beaten." As for the combination of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Master Mouse, they gained a lot because they slapped the members of the Avengers in the face. Lee Zahn was very satisfied and taught them the basics of chakra training with a wave of his hand. The 3 ninjutsu are instantaneous, substitute, and transformation. In the world of Naruto, this is the most basic foundation, but in the world of American comics, it is Scorpion's unique skill. After all, there are very few extraordinary sequences that can form a system in this place. In addition, this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles team has been honing their skills for several years, and they are uniquely talented in ninjutsu. Especially Master Splinter. During his first training, he mastered the refining of chakra and successfully performed the teleportation technique. Such a talent, if you put him in the world of Naruto. Maybe a mouse fairy can come back. In addition, they have completely offended the Avengers. In Lee Zahn's view, they are one of their own, but he missed them. But just when Lee Zahn was triumphant, his horse's hoof was broken. Iron Fist is in a life and death crisis. Iron Fist Danny found his childhood friend Meacham, hoping to learn from him about the circumstances of his parents' plane crash. He also wanted to get back the company shares his parents left him and his identity as heir, and get back his family business of control. But this time it stirred a hornet's nest. After all, in Meacham's view, the Milcom Industrial Group has long been his own industry, but now someone wants to share the profits. If this family business is really returned to Danny, what else will they do? It's better to go to bed and get out early. Although his heart was full of hatred, Meacham did not show it on his face. Instead, he kindly made him a cup of coffee with added spices. "Even if you want me to believe that you are Danny, you have to provide evidence. I guarantee the truth." For example, Danny started talking, and just as he was getting excited, he picked up the coffee and took a sip. When Meacham saw this scene, he was secretly happy, but he showed it very indifferently, with the attitude of saying, "Whatever you want, I will not," perfunctorily. After a few minutes, Danny also sensed something was wrong. You must know that according to the physique he tested in Kunlun, he can survive in extreme weather and will never get sleepy while sitting on a chair. He stared at his childhood friend with wide eyes and said in horror, "You, what did you do?" Meacham sneered when he heard this. He was not afraid that the cooked duck in front of him would fly away. He explained slowly. I just added a little bit of drug. According to this dose, you should have fainted. I didn't expect to carry 5 minutes, it's incredible. Why are you trying to hurt me? Danny's face was full of doubts. After all, when he was a child, the man in front of him was his best friend. You were the one who caused trouble first. Meacham looked fierce and said, my companion Danny has been killed in an avalanche accident long ago. You dare to pretend to be him to deceive. Do you think I should plot against you? He looked like he wanted revenge. Apparently he thought he was sure of victory. Do. Iron Fist used his remaining strength to dial a call, and after the call was connected, he shouted, help me. Then, before he could say anything, Meacham snatched him away. A flurry of doubtful questions came from the other end of the phone. No matter who you are, I advise you not to take a trip into this muddy water. Meacham introduced himself. I am the current president of Milcom Industrial Group. If you come to cause trouble, I will definitely make you pay the price. Pissed, the other end of the phone suddenly laughed, and the man said emotionally, how are you going to deal with me? I will make you never come back, I will make you evaporate, I will make you regret coming to this world. Meacham continued to threaten. After he poured out his heartfelt words in that long paragraph, I felt a sense of comfort all over my body. But he never saw Danny's slightly puzzled eyes, which seemed to be saying, where did you come from, idiot? Others don't know. How could Danny not know how powerful Liaison was? Just when they met for the first time, he felt that the powerful energy in the man in front of him was not inferior to S.H.I.E.L.D. You must know that S.H.I.E.L.D. is a dragon that has lived in Kunlun for thousands of years. Can ordinary people compare with dragons? Can't. And if someone dares to challenge the dragon's dignity, then he must be dead. Just wait, you'll regret it. Danny said in that weak tone. It's you who should regret it. You dare to pretend to be my childhood friend. I will send you to a mental hospital for treatment. Meacham lowered her body and approached his ear, speaking gently and threateningly. Tap 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 tap. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Meacham thought it was him who made the call, and the security personnel he called arrived, and he walked to the door excitedly. But just when he saw a dark figure standing outside the door through the peephole, he couldn't help but look panicked. He turned around and took out a pistol from a drawer not far away, turned on the safety, then pointed at the door and shouted, who are you? Didn't you invite me here? The soothing male voice outside the door was also mixed with some joking tone. Why are you asking about me now? After hearing this, Meacham's expression changed, and then he became a little angry. You really dare to come here? The next second, the man started shooting through the edge of the door. The bullet quickly penetrated the wooden door. Just after he fired all the bullets, the man breathed a sigh of relief. In his opinion, the stupid young man outside the door must be dead. Meacham walked up confidently, but as he opened the wooden door, the scene he saw surprised him. No blood. There were only shell casings in one place. And the mysterious man who remains standing, and the ghostly mask that is mocking him. Fear. Horrible. Those kinds of emotions emerged from the heart of the CEO, and then spread to his whole body. Even when the man in front of him reached out and patted Meacham on the shoulder, he was still in a state of confusion. Meacham couldn't understand that despite his sudden attack, he didn't defeat this uninvited guest. But as this man swaggered into the room, he sat on the boss's chair without hesitation, not taking him seriously at all. Meacham was furious, pointed with his finger and said, just wait, I will sue you and put you in the police station. But all your men are lying on the ground. Then I'll call the police and let the New York City police come and arrest you. You just expect a pile of rubbish that will wash the floor. Liaison was amused by the man in front of him. He said, then you might as well look forward to the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Also, you don't seem to have figured out your position. Crack. Just a slight snap of the fingers. Members of the Shadow Corps appeared throughout the room. Although they were only 1 against 10 ancient ninjas, with their near immortality, they could still display powerful abilities even in this modern war. Come. Commonly known as the cannon fodder harvester. This is the power of the devil. After seeing this strange scene, Meacham was so frightened that his 2 legs trembled, and he leaned against the wall to avoid falling to the ground. And then, the masked man's words made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. If Danny cannot be awakened within 5 minutes, he will be sunk into the Manhattan River. God, this is a devil. Meacham hurriedly searched the room, but while he was rummaging through the boxes and cabinets, the anxious expression on his face did not fade away at all, but became more and more intense as time went by. Not this little brown bottle. Not this little blue bottle. Not this little black bottle. He was like a grasshopper tied to a rope. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape his destined fate. Just when he was about to be driven crazy by the looks of those shadow soldiers, he finally found the antidote at the bottom of the cabinet. Meacham hurriedly fed Danny. His movements were extremely careful and gentle, as if he were treating a lover. You must know that just a few minutes ago, he was speaking evil words and threatening him, showing an arrogant attitude. Gouda. Danny regained consciousness shortly after taking the medicine. What caught his eye was the smiling expression on his childhood friend's face. Subconsciously, he clenched his fist and gave him a blow. Crazy. Didn't he threaten to send himself to a mental hospital? Danny's body reacted much faster than his brain. With just one punch, he was knocked 4 meters away, and the back of his head fell to the ground. He fainted as soon as he closed his eyes. And when he stood up suddenly, he also discovered the members of the Shadow Corps around him, as well as the demon-masked man sitting on the chair. Who are you? Relying on his powerful perception ability, Danny has noticed the powerful coercion of the mysterious man in front of him. Then the vast S.H.I.E.L.D. almost surpasses S.H.I.E.L.D, reaching a level that ordinary people cannot look up to in their lifetime. The companion who invited me to dinner last time. Danny said hesitantly, obviously not sure yet. You were right, my companion. Li Zan took off his mask. You really came to save me, thank you so much. Iron Fist Danny walked up and gave him a hug. It is true to say that a friend in need is a friend indeed. It was also after experiencing this kind of experience of being without friends and being betrayed one after another that Danny became more and more aware of the preciousness of friendship. After all, not everyone can take risks like Li Zan for someone they just met. Dee-dee-da-da. As Meacham fell to the ground, the back of his head was hit, and a large amount of blood seeped out. Even the carpet has been dyed red. It took Danny a while to notice the situation, and he hurriedly stepped forward, picked him up, and checked the situation. But the more Danny checked, the colder he felt in his heart. No breathing. There is no heartbeat, although this childhood friend plotted against him. But according to his original idea, it was just to teach him a lesson, not to send him away in one go. Danny was stunned. Even though he has been practicing in the secret realm of Kunlun for more than 10 years, the teaching he follows is not to kill innocent people indiscriminately, which is similar to the famous and decent sect of ancient China. But now, Danny found out that he had broken the habit. This sudden incident disrupted his arrangements and made him fall into reflection and doubt about himself. Although Li Zan stood up at this moment and persuaded him step by step. After all, it was Meacham who made the first move, and Iron Fist could only be considered a subconscious move at best. But he can't even withstand a punch. Who's to blame? But Danny still frowned and looked coy. He was obviously caught in the most common trouble of superheroes, which is to constantly add moral buffs to himself. Put shackles on yourself. As long as you identify yourself as a superhero, you don't need others to say anything, and you will automatically take on the responsibility of saving. And if you do something wrong, you will fall into trouble and self-blame, causing mental internal friction. Unless someone comes to break this situation. Li Zan turned his head and followed his gaze. Clang. The wooden door was pushed open, and Iron Fist's childhood playmate Meacham also rushed in. She is Harold's daughter and Meacham's sister. She was good friends with Danny when they were young. After the elder Harold faked his death, together with his brother, he manages the Rand Group and is responsible for financial management. But now, as she saw her brother lying in a pool of blood, she couldn't help but look excited. What exactly did you do to my brother? Meacham shouted, and after scanning the mysterious man in the evil mask and the many shadow ninjas, his eyes rested on Danny, who was at a loss. She is undoubtedly a shrewd woman. I know that persimmons should be picked soft and pinched. Also under her constant questioning, Danny looked ashamed and evasive, as if he had been caught. After seeing this, Meacham became even more arrogant, and she said viciously, I will make you pay the price. I will make you pay with blood. As soon as these words came out. But it made Lizon laugh. He directly pointed out that Harold, the brother and sister's father, was not dead. He secretly planned the crash of Danny's family many years ago. When facing Danny's father's request for help, he chose to stand by and watch, which ultimately led to as for Danny's mother, she also chose to die in the snowy mountains because of her deep feelings. This wave of two-level reversal came out. Meacham's arrogance suddenly dimmed, but he still refused to admit defeat and said, "My father Harold has died a long time ago. Don't make up nonsense here." She was unwilling to admit that her family had done anything wrong to Danny. She can't afford to lose that person. Although their family did make a fortune by occupying the company founded by Danny's parents, so what? Even if they don't take it by force, someone will have evil intentions, otherwise it would be better to let them keep it for you. After all, Danny was already dead. You liar, don't pretend to be my friend. Meacham pointed at Iron Fist and cursed. Wow. Iron Fist Danny's eyes were already red, and when he raised his head, his face was filled with murderous intent. My friend, is what you just said true? I have the Shadow Core. It's not easy to hide any secrets from me in this city. Old fool. Danny gritted his teeth and never gave the woman in front of him a chance to perform, so he slapped her with his backhand. The woman was knocked to the ground on the spot. And she was like an eggplant beaten by frost. Declined. Next, I want old Harold to pay with his blood. Although the old Harold was confined in the secret room by Mrs. Gao and had almost no qualifications to leave, he also gained the friendship of the Hand and possessed an extraordinary material keel that allowed him to survive. And just a small piece of it made old Harold feel an amazing effect. The temptation of immortality. This is the best way to attract these wealthy businessmen to be obedient. Tap tap tap. But on this day, there was a sudden knock on the door. Old Harold became a little confused. Today is not the time to pass on information and hand in tasks with the Hand. Why is someone here? When old Harold looked out through the safety door, he was so frightened that he broke into a cold sweat. He actually saw a familiar figure. Those facial features. That temperament is exactly the same as that of his dead old friend. Could it be that the scandal happened to me back then, so his ghost came to trouble me? Old Harold was still guessing. But there was a roar outside the door. What followed was that the iron door was smashed open with a punch. The flying dust and spurting screws were scattered everywhere. Danny's right fist exuded light golden power, and a deep fist mark appeared on the broken iron door, obviously unable to withstand his power. Old Harold's expression changed even more. He had already concluded that the guy in front of him was no longer a human being. How could normal people have such amazing power? It won't shine anymore. Danny raised his fist and asked the man in front of him about the circumstances of his parents' murder. Just under his angry questioning, this old Harold told everything about his assassination process back then. It turned out that he had a crush on Danny's mother, Heather, but because of Danny's father's violent attack on her, he came up with the idea of killing him and possessing Heather. Harold Sr. quickly put this plan into action. And he also successfully killed Danny's father. But what he didn't expect was that Heather was also very bloody and chose to sacrifice herself for love. I gave her a chance, but she didn't take it. I can't blame her. Old Harold was still chattering away, trying to avoid responsibility. As the secrets that had been accumulated in his heart for many years were revealed, he became extremely excited. But Danny's expression turned even worse. Originally, he was already furious after listening to Lizon's narration. Now that the enemy who killed his parents is in front of him, he still looks unrepentant, which makes his anger even higher. I will beat you to death. Iron Fist Danny gritted his teeth and said, I will punch you to pieces. As soon as these words came out, old Harold turned pale. But his daughter's expression also changed drastically. He had already seen his brother lying in a pool of blood. But I never thought that I would have to witness my father's death. No, you can't. Meacham rushed to Danny. She knelt on the ground and cried. The development and growth of Milcom Industrial Group today is all due to my father. You can't burn bridges by crossing the river. You want me to show mercy to an enemy who killed his parents? Danny asked rhetorically. I just think we should look forward. Things have happened, and I am very sad, but life has to go on. We can welcome you back to the company, and you can be in any position you want, as long as you let my father go. Meacham continued. Danny's face had already turned dark. If we say that before, he still had regrets for his childhood playmates in his heart. Now after this incident came out, this little bit of incense love has long since ended. Old Harold must die. Danny clenched his fists and saw the light golden luster coming out. It was the power he got from S.H.I.E.L.D that was being released. The next second, the figure flashed by. Bang! Old Harold fell to the ground in response, and his chest was dented to a large extent, and blood was pouring out from the wound. His eyes were wide open and he looked straight at the man in front of him. Just as the old man felt that the vitality in his body was gradually disappearing, he used his last strength to praise, "He is indeed her son." When Meacham saw this, he burst into tears and ran forward a few steps, reaching out and hugging him. She is heartbroken. She is remorseful. She was regretting that her luxurious life was about to be gone forever. Perhaps, there is still a little bit of sadness, feeling sad about the death of my father. You are just an executioner. You can never become a superhero respected by the people. Meacham cursed angrily, trying to make the man in front of him regret. Superhero. Danny's face showed struggle and regret, but as he looked at the bloody fists for a long time, the expression on his face returned to calm. Why should I care about other people's opinions? As for you, when the company's affairs are handed over, I will send you to a mental hospital. Blood debts must be paid with blood. No, Danny, you can't do this. Meacham's expression changed drastically. She couldn't imagine what kind of miserable life she would face if she was imprisoned in a monastery hospital. Her days of extravagance were over. What follows will be full of sadness. She reached out and grabbed Danny's calf, but was kicked away hard again. But Danny no longer cared about her, and instead walked towards Lisanne with a smile on his face. After wiping the blood with the wet towel, he said to him, "My brother, I will inherit the secret from him. I will give you half of the shares of S.H.I.E.L.D Industrial Group, and with our cooperation, there will definitely be a bright future." Quote, "Respect freedom, respect tomorrow." The two held wine glasses and drank the treasured red wine. The bones of old Harold on the ground were still cold. Meacham's eyes were blank, and he collapsed on the ground, frightened and insane. In this already chaotic Hell's Kitchen, when Lisanne begins to recruit troops with the help of capital, he will usher in a bloody storm. When he accumulates enough power in the dark, he will also establish his own justice. That would be violent justice. It will be justice stained with blood. My heart and actions are as clear as a mirror, and everything I do is righteous. And the rest are all dust. After Iron Fist killed Old Harold, he made some changes to S.H.I.E.L.D Industrial Group. In the process, there was naturally no shortage of bloody and violent suppression. If he was the only one, he would easily ignore the beginning and end. An error occurred while busy. But who asked Lisanne to intervene in this matter? The Shadow Army under his control is the most loyal guard and can complete the assigned tasks wholeheartedly. It was also during the process of suppression and cleansing. There is an undercurrent in Hell's Kitchen. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D Industrial Group is helping the Hand to do private work, and it can be said to be the best dog leg. However, after Iron Fist Danny began to baptize, this matter was delayed and put aside. Danny even said, "Who cares if the Hand is combined? From now on, the two brothers will have the final say in Hell's Kitchen." I have to say, when an honest man breaks the habit of killing, it will become no taboo. This is what Lisanne is happy to see. He himself is a ruthless butcher. Besides, if the situation is not chaotic, how can he recruit superheroes? Kingpin, the Hand, Russian brothers. This needs to be sorted out. April, the female reporter, was not idle either. After she collected the dirty information about the Avengers, she wrote one report after another overnight, exposing all the members of the Avengers. What American Light reveals Captain Steve's hidden dark side. Marksman Hawkeye actually attacks his own team members. Is this a distortion of human nature or a loss of morality? A nest of snakes and rats. The bully Iron Man gets out of New York. When this series of news reporting materials are presented, it caused an uproar in this TV station. Not to mention Captain Steve, who is a representative of the American spirit, and yet his house collapsed. And that playboy Iron Man is also full of ugliness. Although Hawkeye's enthusiasm was less, he shot an arrow at Captain Steve. The dirty stuff and gossip about these superheroes. It will make the whole of New York City excited. The female editor-in-chief of the New York Times wanted to kiss Priel on the spot. After finally controlling her emotions, she said, "Well done, great done. You will become a popular star in the journalism world, and you will be well received. With the support of all media people, your efforts will be richly rewarded. Thank you, Editor-in-Chief." April was extremely excited, even though she knew her efforts would be rewarded. But I didn't expect it to get such a high rating. Immediately afterwards, the female reporter was arranged to host a new program, asking her to publish this depth charge-like behavior. 10 minutes later, there was a quarrel on the internet because of the actions of the Avengers members. You must know that in the past, they all symbolized justice. Under the halo of superheroes, they were the people's protective umbrella. But with this news report, they became villains, selfish villains, and two-faced people. Such a strong contrast also caused the originally good reviews to plummet. What Captain America? I didn't expect him to be a despicable and shameless villain, doing one thing in front of others and doing another behind his back. Bah, disgusting. The captain also had his share of glorious risks, but that was 70 years ago. Now he does not deserve to be praised as a benchmark and a banner. Captain Steve, you failed us. Heartbroken expression. What Iron Man? He is just an arrogant and joker. Don't be funny when you put on a suit to save others. This is his true face. It's my fault that I still regard him as an idol. I really didn't expect that all the members of the Avengers are a den of snakes and rats. They are all scum. Just under this constant explosion of heat, it also gradually spread to New York City residents. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D., just when the internet was quarreling over the Avengers' inappropriate behavior, Nick, as the leader, was also worried about this. He originally wanted to form a team to unite to protect the people, but now he is ridiculed as League of Scumbags. It would be fine if the matter ended here, but who alerted Nick's superiors? Make sure you handle this properly. Captain Steve's glorious image cannot be discredited. What's this? You're asking me to wipe my butt? Nick reached out and patted the bald head, and the expression on his face became as if he had eaten shit. He quickly dialed the number of the medical center and asked, "How are the members of the Avengers team? How is the treatment effect?" The medical center gave a positive answer. Except that Tony is more seriously injured and cannot turn over, Captain Steve and Black Widow can already get out of bed and walk. Nick said angrily, "Then let them come to my office." After some time, when Captain Steve and Black Widow came to this place, Director Nick scolded him in a disrespectful manner. After all, the attempt to subdue the super criminal Spider Demon failed. I didn't expect that such a big deal was left. Now it has flowed to the entire network. The situation continues to get worse. How do you want him to wipe this butt? At this time, Director Nick looked like he was worried about you, but he forgot that during the operation, he was also very interested in the alien creature and reached a PY deal with Tony. But now after things fell apart. However, Director Nick turned his back and said that it was all the fault of these team members. In fact, we have discovered that a reporter was secretly filming, and went to Rob. Captain Steve explained. Then what? What's the result? Director Nick's face turned black. The result was that we were beaten by 4 turtles and a mouse. Captain Steve continued. You have the nerve to say this. Director Nick gave another scolding, and after his anger subsided a little, he said. Next, we will hold a press conference to clarify the negative impact caused by the Avengers. Captain Steve will go back and prepare the manuscript. I will let Agent Hill review the manuscript. As for Black Widow, I have other things to arrange. As Captain Steve and Black Widow walked out of the director's office, both of them looked unhappy. Since I was released from the ice, I found that the world has changed a lot. Actually, Captain Steve, what I want to tell you is that nothing has changed. 2 days later, S.H.I.E.L.D's clarification campaign about the Avengers team begins. Hundreds of media came to the scene, like sharks smelling blood. The original superheroes were aloof. Although there were occasional negative reports, they were not real. But this time, when April showed the news and video, everyone became excited about the confirmed content. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been very busy with this. On the one hand, it is constantly arranging for the Navy to clean up the floor. On the other hand, it is also actively preparing speeches in an attempt to restore Captain Steve's image that should have been dazzling. I'm very happy today that everyone can come here. Here, on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D, I will announce a brand new business. The National Youth Home is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping homeless young people. Before Agent Hill stepped onto the stage, she first gave a speech. With her excellent eloquence, she quickly attracted attention to this charity. After some sparse applause, the captain walked out wearing a 5-star flag uniform. His clothing had the texture of the last century, and it was obviously the honorary uniform he wore for his debut. When people see this familiar clothing, they can't help but think of Captain Steve's feat of saving soldiers and liberating Europe from Nazi rule. For a while, the atmosphere at the scene was also more lively. Hill agent also took advantage of the situation and said, "Captain Steve is human. He, like most of us, makes mistakes, but we all deserve a chance at redemption." It is also in this spirit of correcting mistakes after recognizing them that Captain Steve has donated $10 million to youth homes across the United States. Next, let us welcome Captain Steve to speak. Hello everyone, I'm Steve. I know I'm sorry for everyone, and let this free spirit be tarnished. I can't sleep all night because of this. There is no doubt about it. Captain Steve is a master at mobilizing emotions. When talking about the rise, he also threw the manuscript aside and began to express freely. It was this kind of spontaneous behavior that made the atmosphere at the scene more lively. But right here, Captain Steve finished his speech and was waiting for media reports to clear his name. Whoops! A streak of fire flashed across the sky. What followed was a cool armor falling from the sky. It's Tony Iron Man. As he opened his mask, all the media members became excited, picked up their cameras and kept pressing the shutter on him. "Tony, why are you here?" Before Captain Steve could recover from the shock, he heard something big popping out of his mouth. "We are obviously not at fault. Why should we apologize? I have had enough of this a long time ago. I am better than most of you, and smarter. I have inherited the history of Stark Industries founded by my father and will carry it forward. You should praise me." He just stood in front of many media people. Speak freely without hesitation. The reporters around were even more crazy. Asked more. "Mr. Stark, what do you think of this defeat? I underestimated the enemy this time. I will definitely make the Spider Demon look good next time. Mr. Stark, some people think you are fooling the audience. You are not a superhero at all, you are a joker. If you let him come in front of me, let me see who dares to say that. Mr. Stark, may I take what you said as a threat? I recognize your work badge. You have to pay attention to your words and deeds, Mr. Reporter." Under the questioning of everyone, Tony responded fluently, and his chat was so fluent that everyone forgot that this was a press conference belonging to Captain America. Captain Steve wanted to step forward to stop him, but was stopped by Agent Hill. She said quietly, "It's good to have him share the firepower. He can bring out your reasonableness, Captain." That's right. Captain Steve thought that his speech was inspiring enough and his attitude was sincere. The goal of this press conference has also been achieved. If there's anything else I'm not satisfied with, that is, Tony came and stole all his limelight. But when I think about his performance, it will bring out his own perfection. Captain Steve smiled broadly and walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder, showing the close interaction between the team members. Also at this moment, Iron Man Tony felt that the foreshadowing was almost complete, and he uttered a shocking sentence from his mouth. "I believe that if we want to reduce the crime rate, we must unite all superheroes. It is not advisable to fight alone. Only by working together can we fight against all crises. I recommend that Congress pursue the Superhero Registration Act. Let all the superheroes in the world unite, so that no matter how evil the supervillains are, no matter how strange their abilities are, it will also be taken down by our collective. Justice will prevail." At the end of Iron Man Tony's narration, he waved his fist to express his position. Aha! As soon as these words came out, the already fiery media experienced another emotional explosion. You must know that Tony Iron Man is a capital group that can dominate the direction of society. His words and deeds affect the actions of many people in the world, and the superhero bill he mentioned this time has caused a huge wave of publicity. It is conceivable that if all superheroes can unite together, this will be a feat across the ages. With their joint efforts, New York City will usher in a new era. There would be no war. It will be an era without chaos. Mr. Stark, do you want to be the leader of all superheroes? Certainly. After hearing this, Tony said with certainty, I am the son of a billionaire, I am the greatest inventor, and I will lead the superheroes to the top. Click. After hearing this, the microphone in Captain Steve's hand was crushed. No matter what he guessed, I didn't expect Tony to play such a trick on me. If he wins the leadership of the Avengers, then who does he matter? Steve, you screwed up this time. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D., after Director Nick finished watching the press conference, his face became uncertain for a while. He didn't expect Tony to play such a trick. His original plan was to form a powerful team of superheroes to deal with the crises lurking in the piece. Although there were some deviations in this plan. Since the Butcher was given up, the team has hit a wall one after another, but this does not mean that Director Nick has given up on the plan. On the contrary, he has paid more attention to it, and even specially selected high-level agents to assist. Captain Steve clears his name. But Tony's words caught him off guard. After all, Director Nick is just playing the petty Avengers, but he plays the role of uniting all the superheroes. Isn't this equivalent to starting from scratch? If he could do it, his Avengers team is really a joke. Unless, he is doing this work as a member of the Avengers. It looks like I have to cut my flesh again. Director Nick looked bitter, regretting himself, and I will take some of the treasure house of S.H.I.E.L.D. and ask Tony. Just wait, it won't be too long. When the Venom 2.0 suit is developed, all S.H.I.E.L.D. agents will be super soldiers. By then, not to mention the Spider Demon and the Butcher, everyone will be trampled under our feet. Director Nick used the spirit of AQ to encourage himself. But just as he was scanning the sky outside the window, New York City shrouded in dark clouds. In the single-family villa, the little green goblin Harry also scanned the news. When he heard what Tony said about the Superhero Registration Act, his mocking expression became even more distorted. Another lunatic who wants to be famous. Superheroes are all arrogant and want to join forces. What a wishful thinking. In his opinion, Iron Man Tony is just a clown. Although he is the president of Stark Industries Group. But he is also the president of Osborn Group. The little green goblin Harry is also the son of a billionaire. Even though he is not as smart as Tony, after being injected with the medicine, his body has been strengthened to more than 7 times that of ordinary people. Coupled with the newly developed gliders and protective armor, he can also able to fight with those so-called vigilantes. Spider-Man can turn into a supervillain. He would like to see how many superheroes can stick to their hearts. And close to the abyss. Will be swallowed by the abyss. Dee. Just as the little green goblin Harry was thinking, a text message came up on the screen in front of him. As he clicked on it, the picture of the superhero Butcher appeared on it. You are the one who made Peter feel bad. I gotta find you. Boom, boom, boom. Although it was 10 o'clock at night, there were people who did not fall asleep at the Hell's Kitchen construction site. The man has a thick beard, wears a patched jacket, and looks unkempt. But his work efficiency is very high. In a short time, a wall was broken through with a sledgehammer. After a while, when the front wall was destroyed, the man took off his headphones, sat down and gasped. When he took out his phone and took a look, he found a news push from the system. Arrogant genius, stupid fool, is Iron Man crazy? The man browsed quickly. When he saw the superheroes united and able to fight against all evil, he laughed contemptuously. I don't believe that good will be rewarded with good and evil will be punished with evil. The only thing I believe in is that the gun in my hand can punish them. I am the Punisher. Frank murmured, his thoughts returning to the warm interaction between himself and his wife and daughter before the accident. At that time, he also had a happy family. But just because of a simple weekend party, they witnessed a lynching incident by the gang, and they were shot and silenced by the gang. If it weren't for his good luck, he would also have been shot dead. And there is no way to take revenge. The government's inaction also crushed the man. Frank chose to embark on the road of revenge. In this world, if justice cannot be upheld, then there will be punishers who will wipe out everything with iron blood. In Tony's seaside villa, when the events during the day further escalated, this genius fell into a simple and intense busyness. He was a greedy and arrogant man, but he was also a genius inventor. Even if he didn't, Venom conducts dissection research and only relies on a small piece of symbiont. He also developed a brand new armor. There is nothing similar to previous armors on it. Like a ferocious predator. Evil, ferocious, brutal. I named it Greed. This alien creature is the rarest material. It can derive many possibilities depending on the host. It is like a monster that will never be satisfied. I combined it with the technology of Stark Industries, and it created a wonderful chemical reaction. Tony said, and reached out to touch the somewhat agile armor. And the next second, the armor of this half-mechanical, half-living body decomposed and then covered him again. It looked like an alien hunter appeared in the laboratory. Tony, what did you invent again? Little Pepper walked in not far away. When she saw this amazing armor, she couldn't help but speak. I invented a monster. Tony spoke, showing some pride in his words. But it was never perceived. Under the cover of this symbiote, the flaw that could only be called arrogance has gradually been magnified. This symbiote can amplify the dark side deep in the host's heart. Even after mechanical transformation, it still exists, giving him the possibility of losing control. And inside Hell's Kitchen, in that extremely gorgeously decorated manner, the hundreds of members of the Shadow Corps were also working. Lee was lying under the moonlight, enjoying the pleasure of countless energy pouring into his body. As the blood of the sacred tree came into play, he could clearly perceive that his strength was getting stronger. He felt that he was far away from opening the immortal body. The pattern is not far away. It's as if it's at your fingertips. Really looking forward to it. Iron Man rushed to Empire State University and gave a speech, calling on all superheroes to unite and fight evil together. Iron Man publicly stated in the newspaper that he would preside over the work as the captain of the Avengers. Iron Man made a promise that any superhero who joins him can get generous rewards and friendship from him. Just after Tony publicly stated that he would implement the Superhero Registration Act, he began to travel around, develop and debug the Greed armor. He is indeed a genius. After he mastered cutting-edge technology, he did not forget to join forces with his partners and form a community of interests with them. In this way, both hands go hand in hand, and Tony firmly believes that he can defeat all opponents. However, even though the slogans and rewards have been announced, they still cannot attract real superheroes to reveal their identities and join this group. Tony, you have to fight evil, you have to set an example. Hawkeye suggested. You're right. Tony nodded in praise. I really should show my own strength to attract them. It was at this time. A news article appeared in the New York Times. Otto's experiment failed, exploded, and reappeared as an octopus monster robbing a bank. Tony's face showed excitement. After scanning the news, he roughly guessed the doctor's intention. That is to rob a bank, obtain funds, prepare equipment, and conduct experiments again. This kind of Frankenstein mindset. He knew it all too well. And if we grasp this point correctly, we can definitely bring this criminal to justice. Compared with ordinary people, catching a super criminal will definitely show the level of Iron Man. Although the newspaper boasted that the 4 mechanical tentacles could destroy all obstacles, even safes were easily destroyed. But for Tony, who is also an inventor, it is not easy to deal with. The Greed armor he invented integrates the most cutting-edge technology at the moment and will be the nemesis of all technological weapons. Captain Steve sat in the corner. With Tony's sudden rise, his status dropped again and again, becoming a marginal figure in the group. Even Hawkeye, who was close to him, felt a vague sense of alienation. This severely damaged his already arrogant self-esteem. Obviously, I was the one who came first. I decided to take action against him. Iron Man, Tony said categorically, and after saying that, he stood up suddenly and walked out. Need our help? Hawkeye's voice came from behind. No, this will be my own stage. Iron Man Tony rejected his kindness and instead believed that his own strength could deal with all troubles. Just shortly after Tony left, Captain Steve sat in silence for a long time and then said, I can fight all day. He regained his fighting spirit again. He thought nothing could knock it down. So what if it makes Tony famous for a while? In this world, opportunity always comes to those who are prepared. I have to go find Agent Fitz and have a chat. In New York City and Queens, what was supposed to be a dilapidated factory was filled with rows of precision instruments. After Dr. Otto robbed the bank, he used all the money he earned to buy raw materials and instruments, preparing to continue own experiment. Dr. Otto didn't want to eat or wear anything. Even the clothes he wore were old jackets. But he is willing to invest in his ideal. He wanted to invent an endless energy source that would be enough for the entire world to use. He wanted to create a tritium reactor. Although Drive Alto successfully carried out experiments with the help of Osborn Company. After the death of the old Green Goblin Norman Osborn, the little Green Goblin came to power, making his money-burning project unable to continue. Just in the last experiment, the pipeline ruptured, causing radiation to leak out, causing a big explosion. This also caused his brain tissue to mutate, allowing him to control the mechanical tentacles behind him. I will rise again in the midst of suffering, and no one can stop my determination. Dr. Otto said confidently, and the mechanical tentacles just behind him are also swinging up and down. It was like a group of crazy snakes writhing in strange dances. Just when Dr. Otto was once again planning to conduct a robbery and add new instruments to his experiments, Iron Man Tony released a new video. I am Iron Man. I'm here to challenge that arrogant octopus weirdo who robs banks wantonly. No matter where you are, no matter what you want to do, I will catch you and put you on trial. When Dr. Otto saw this, his face turned red with anger. You know it was in his memory. There was no contact with this playboy at all. Now he is just going a little too far to raise funds. Unexpectedly, I was also threatened by this superhero. He just wants to develop endless energy. Even this small request cannot be met. He has never harmed anyone. But he was still targeted by this genius inventor. Why in this world are there always people who disturb my research? Dr. Otto couldn't figure it out. The mechanical tentacles behind him were dancing crazily, and with just a slight crush, a big crater appeared on the solid ground. The last experiment failed, and the leaked radiation not only changed him, but also made the robotic arm that could grab 8 tons of weight become indestructible and extremely agile. If you want to catch me, then come on. Dr. Octopus isn't afraid of a challenge. Alto whispered, his eyes showing amazing madness and rationality. He has endured too much suffering and experienced too many hardships. Those difficult years not only failed to defeat him. It also allowed him to become calm and tenacious in the process of time. Ding! A random mission has been detected nearby. Opposite the Empire State Building, stands the largest financial bank in New York City. There is a reinforced platoon of federal guards standing at the door, not to mention the specially designed safe inside, which is said to be able to withstand the explosion of a nuclear bomb. But since its establishment, until today, no one has tried it. How indestructible is this treasure house? Tap tap tap. Just on the outer wall made of bricks and stones, there were scratches. Dr. Octopus struck again. He was not frightened by the threat of Tony Iron Man. Instead, he became more and more frustrated and chose to slap him in the face. Didn't you say you were going to catch me? I want to see what you are capable of. Dr. Otto crawled quickly. A sharp drill emerged from the mechanical tentacle behind him. The next moment, Zila, the walls shattered, along with the smoke and dust falling. It's not just concrete blocks and bricks. And that menacing octopus monster. Ah! Inside the bank, almost all the members screamed. They had witnessed the terrifying lethality of this mechanical claw. Even the hard masonry walls could not withstand it, let alone their flesh and blood bodies. Dr. Otto's next actions were quite methodical. He first gathered the bank members and money-saving customers into the lobby, then confiscated all their means of transportation and tied them up before forcing the lobby manager to go to the vault. Under this resolute action, not to mention the already weak girls, even the grown men turned pale with fright. Dr. Otto is crazy. He really dares to do something. Among the crowd, Nurse Claire looked shocked. Not long ago, when Dr. Octopus gave the order to hand over the communication tools, there was a stupid young man who chose to refuse. He kept saying that he wanted human rights. Bang! The next second, the man's forearm was broken. Blood dripped all over the floor. It was also after this little episode. Everyone knows the majesty of Dr. Otto. No one dared to test his bottom line anymore. Showing strength can earn respect. Dr. Otto whispered to himself, and under the leadership of the lobby manager, he soon arrived at the most precious treasure house. We also arrived at this place. The old manager knelt down on the ground and begged, I don't have a special key, plus this safe has a 3-layer lock. If it is blasted with force, it will be locked and cannot be opened again. It won't open. Why can't you turn on me, Dr. Octopus? Otto asked. The mechanical tentacles behind him started to fly. One after another, different operating instruments are displayed. There is an electric drill. There is a cutting machine. Has lock. Almost everything you need. Alto actually wanted to rely on his ability to break into the strongest safe in history and obtain diamonds and gold from it. This is impossible. The old man collapsed on the ground, but after Alto made his move, he was so frightened that he pulled on the wall and got up again. In this old manager's decades of career, he has seen the defense level upgrade again and again. If it were 10 years ago, there would still be a possibility of being breached. But now, this old man can guarantee that it is absolutely impossible for anyone to violently demolish it. But today, he witnessed a guy, relying on simple tools and magical operations, turning decay into magic, opening layers of mechanisms one after another. At the end, when Dr. Otto opened the door, what he saw was a slowly piling up of gems. They were worth tens of thousands in the outside world, but here, they were piled up randomly like garbage. He controlled the robotic arm to fill the backpack he brought. But even if all the pockets are filled, for this treasure house, less than 1% has been taken away. It seems, I have to work harder next time. Dr. Otto smiled and shook his head, then turned and walked outside the house. In the process, he also manipulated the mechanical arm in an extremely gentlemanly manner and put on the hat of old experience. Wearing it will make you look more energetic. You. After hearing this, the old man opened his mouth and finally held back 2 words, what a freak. In a single-family villa next to the coastline, Tony was debugging the parameters of the new armor and increasing its burst capability, but a sudden piece of news interrupted his thoughts. It was sent by the artificial intelligence Jarvis. Mr. Stark, I should remind you that the super criminal you want to arrest has appeared. What? After Tony heard the news, he was very surprised. Where is he? I thought that after he let the news go out. How can it be stable for 10 days and a half? Unexpectedly, Dr. Otto actually chose to commit a crime against the odds. I'm really not afraid of death. A sneer appeared on Iron Man Tony's face. Jarvis continued. Near the Empire State Building, I detected an alarm message. The physical characteristics of the robber in the surveillance are exactly the same as Dr. Octopus. If the Mark III is used, it will take 10 minutes to rush to the battlefield. This is too little time, Tony said to himself and turned his attention to the greedy armor that had been initially debugged. But to use this thing, I only need 2.5 minutes. Set off. Iron Man Tony put on brand new equipment, and as the flames burst out from under his feet, he soared into the sky like an arrow from a string. Ding! A random mission has been detected nearby. Dr. Octopus's frustration. Dr. Otto just wanted to complete the experiment successfully, but he didn't expect to be threatened by Tony to destroy everything he insisted on. This honest man was angry, and he wanted to make this superhero who despised him pay cost. Ding! After accepting this mission, the host needs to help Dr. Octopus slap him in the face and disgrace Iron Man. The reward for this mission will be doubled depending on Dr. Alto's gratitude level. As expected of Tony, he is in trouble again. Liaison glanced at the tasks that appeared on the panel and knew that he had offended the honest Dr. Octopus. It's really hard to blame this guy for being labeled a super criminal. He is dedicated to scientific research. If it wasn't because someone bullied him, he would not have embarked on the path of robbery and scientific research. This is the talent among super criminals. Can be coaxed. Can be persuaded. Can be used for your own use. I think I'm not collecting my friends fast enough, so you want to help me. Thank you so much, Iron Man. Slaughter, we have to give him some color. Aha! Along with the firelight, a black figure fell from the sky. When the ferocious symbiote armor twisted for a while, Tony's face just appeared in front of everyone. He glanced back and forth, and what he saw was the broken wall and the residents who had escaped from the bank. They seemed uninjured, but looked extremely nervous. Run quickly, that octopus monster said that if there are still people in the bank within 3 minutes, he will kill them. He is really good at taking action. One of the disobedient ones has had his arm broken. There are no staff in the bank now. No, there is another unlucky guy hanging in the hall. Iron Man listened to the chatter of the residents around him, with some thoughts flashing in his eyes. This is obviously coming for him. Jarvis, you said that octopus monster found out that I was coming. That's why he arranged this good show. Mr. Stark, I think you are right. But why is he so sure that I will come as he expects? Perhaps, he has analyzed your behavior and ability, Mr. Stark, and came up with this arrangement. Then I have to thank him very much. The ferocious mask on Tony's face closed again, and then flames spurted out. He flew into the sky, circled around the bank, and then carefully broke a window and flew into the building. After he glanced back and forth, he found a young man with a broken arm hanging in the center. Although his wound was simply bandaged, blood was still dripping. He sobbed silently. Jarvis, scan the scene for potential dangers. Tony ordered. The next second, the data eye began to analyze the on-site environment. But after a few seconds, the results of the scan were beyond his expectation. There are no potential enemies around. There were no bombs about to explode. This is an ordinary and extremely ordinary act of kidnapping hostages. Tony quickly fell from the air and untied him easily, but the next words that came out of his mouth made his face turn black. After that weirdo with 4 tentacles tied me up here, he turned around and walked into the toilet. He was such a fool, and he even broke my arm. By the way, Dr. Octopus asked me to take a message before he left, which was, "Hello, Mr. Stark." It seems like a simple greeting. After Iron Man Tony heard this, he just felt stunned. He boasted in the media that he would personally arrest Dr. Octopus in S.H.I.E.L.D. But the reality now is that he went to the bank to rescue the hostages, but was tricked. Not only did I not even see Dr. Octopus's face, I was even humiliated by the words he left behind. This is a slap in the face. Iron Man Tony's face was gloomy, and the armor on his body also grew sharp undercuts in response to his mood, cutting the ground like a sickle, leaving deep marks on the smooth marble tiles. The young man who had just been chattering about his thoughts was so frightened when he saw this scene. Is this still a superhero? Isn't this too scary? He kicked his legs and ran away quickly. Tony walked towards the toilet without saying a word. In the middle of the men's toilet, there was a mess. Dr. Octopus dug a deep pit, broke open the steel pipe, and escaped along the underground pipes extending in all directions. Bank. In this case, then there is a reasonable explanation for his actions just now. First, the bank personnel were released to delay. He also hung the hostage in the hall and asked himself to rescue him. And when the hostages were liberated, Dr. Octopus had already escaped with the help of pipes extending in all directions. What a simple and practical technique. Iron Man Tony sneered, but his face did not show disappointment or depression, but instead became high-spirited. If mice were so easy to catch. This is not very fulfilling. Start tracking mode, Tony ordered. The next second, a hole was opened on the right side of the armor, and dozens of mechanical search bugs crawled out and spread like a spider web along the pipe. Little Mouse wants to leave by virtue of its geographical advantage. It's not that easy. I'm a genius. The objects I invent can solve any problem for me. If you are targeted by me, there is only one way out. Either you can surrender and be captured. Maybe I can give you some dignity. Beep beep beep. It didn't take long. The detector showed new discoveries. Iron Man Tony stood up from the corner, then jumped up and fell into the dark and deep pipe. This Dr. Octopus will be brought to justice. Other end. After Dr. Octopus successfully robbed and stored the gems in the secret room, he relaxed completely. He calculated the harvest of this robbery. Not only could he purchase 2 more large instruments from the black market merchants, but also the remaining the gems are enough for him to purchase raw materials and conduct more than 30 experiments. You must know that when he was in the Osborn group, if he wanted to apply for an experiment, the reporting and approval process alone would take several weeks. Not like now. He can control the experiment process autonomously and adjust the steps anytime and anywhere. What if there is no assistant to cooperate? The robotic arm he developed himself can complete the entire experiment by himself. This is an invention that spans the ages. This is also a compliment to him. I will create endless energy. I will become the light of hope for all mankind. Just as Dr. Otto's thoughts were flying, an uninvited guest arrived outside the door separated by this wall. Dong dong dong. He seemed to knock on the wooden door politely and said, Is Dr. Otto here? Who is it? Dr. Octopus's face changed slightly. You must know that he never let others know that he settled in this place. Could it be that the New York City police are chasing me? But he is already very careful. How could it still be discovered? But the person outside the door did not respond immediately, but turned around and said, "If you don't respond, will I violently break down the door." Bang! The wooden door exploded. What came into view was the black symbiote armor. After the helmet squirmed, the face of Playboy Tony came into view, and he clapped his hands. "Dr. Otto, did I really almost let you escape? If your feet weren't stained with mud." "What?" Dr. Octopus looked down when he heard this, only to see small stains spreading along the edge of the door towards the inside. "But it's just file-sized dirt on your fingernail. Can it be tracked?" "Others can't, but I am a genius." Tony smiled proudly, with a somewhat frivolous expression on his face. "If you surrender, I can give you a decent chance, otherwise, I will beat you up. You want me to take advantage of you. You want me to give up this easy success." When Dr. Octopus heard this, his face turned livid. "You are too arrogant." "Arrogant? You're just a cowardly thief." Tony started to accuse and abuse without hesitation. "You are just a little mouse that slipped away from the sewer. Are you worthy of blaming me?" After Tony finished speaking, he raised his hand and launched a missile at him. Bang! As the missile flew towards Dr. Otto. But it was pinched by the smart mechanical tentacles. Immediately afterwards, flames burst out. Dr. Octopus remained unscathed in the smoke and launched an active attack on this great genius. His mechanical arm moved extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye it struck in front of the Iron Man, and with a fierce grip, it even clamped the man. But, surprisingly, this clamp did not pull Iron Man away, but instead caused him to fall into an anxious state of wrestling. I saw the Iron Man raising his arm, grabbing the mechanical tentacle, and pulling it out fiercely. He relied on the power of the armor to engage in the most primitive confrontation with this mechanical arm. "Dr. Octopus, all you rely on is this mechanical arm. Without it, what use are you?" Tony said without hesitation, and while he was taking advantage of the man in front of him to be stunned, he also threw the mechanical arm away. "I will win this battle." But the next second, the 4 mechanical tentacles all attacked. It's like a wild python hunting. "I'm so happy, I have 4 tentacles like this." The mechanical ends that are constantly opening and closing are like sharp fangs. Such a series of attacks caught Tony off guard. Although he can move 1 robotic arm, Dr. Octopus has 4. As he used his spirit to control these arms to attack, what exploded was a power that amazed everyone. He was too skilled. It has even reached the point where the human and the robotic arm become one. You must know that Captain Steve has only achieved body and S.H.I.E.L.D. oneness. Dr. Octopus's robotic arm is also extendable and can reach an extreme distance of tens of meters long. This means that when he uses his mechanical arm to fight with all his strength, his enemies are often defeated from a distance without even touching the corners of their clothes. The dream I've always held on to, people like you will never understand. Dr. Octopus looked complicated. Bang, bang. There was a dull sound like the sound of iron being struck. This Iron Man Tony was beaten to the point of defeat. Although he has artificial intelligence Jarvis that can analyze the opponent's offensive trajectory and predict it. But who knows that Dr. Octopus's human brain computing power is not a vegetarian. He is a man who can rub out a reactor with his bare hands. Under the constant duel between the two sides, this old house also made an overwhelming sound of breaking. There's a chance. Iron Man fired a missile into the air. This also became the straw that broke the camel's back. Bang! Houses collapsed. When Dr. Octopus climbed up from the ruins, he found that all the instruments he had purchased earlier had been smashed, which made his face darken and became even more angry. He obviously just wanted to complete an experiment. He clearly didn't kill anyone. Why are there always some fools coming to disturb his life? Tony, you deserve to die. Ah! Dr. Octopus frantically launched a combo of mechanical tentacles, slamming towards the Iron Man. It was like a ground-tamping machine that kept falling downwards. This Iron Man was beaten to the point where he retreated. But just after he got away from Dr. Octopus, he controlled the armor and flew into the air. At this time, he breathed a sigh of relief. Dr. Otto, I admit that I underestimate you. Your robotic arm is extremely flexible, but if you can't hit me, what's the use? I'll knock you down, you megalomaniac. Dr. Octopus controlled the robotic arm and approached crazily, trying to shoot him down. But after this fight, Tony didn't dare to let him get close easily, so he directly opened the missile system and suppressed fire on the man on the ground. Although his mechanical arm is very powerful, Alto, who controls the mechanical creation, is an ordinary person. He is just a flesh and blood body. If he is defeated, the crisis can be easily resolved. Bang! After the first missile exploded next to him. One after another, the dozen or so missiles also exploded. A bombing zone was formed within 20 meters of Dr. Octopus. When the scorching flames spread, the place where the explosion took place already showed a scorched earth and dilapidated gray color. Experience such a violent explosion. Naturally, it was impossible for Dr. Otto to not have any injuries. When he looked down, he also found that the stray bullet had penetrated and formed a small opening of 2 centimeters, and blood was constantly flowing down. Iron Man Tony saw this scene and breathed a sigh of relief. If even long-range weapons couldn't do anything to him, he might as well go home as soon as possible. But now, the opportunity has arisen. Tony was about to arrest the supervillain in front of him. Although it's a bit unfair, but what can we do? As long as I win, everyone around me will cheer for me. Aha! He slowly raised his arm, and after the symbiote squirmed for a while, what came into view was the upgraded and modified laser cannon. After the sizzling sound came out, the laser cannon shining with white light shot towards Dr. Octopus. After some collision, it even penetrated the end of the mechanical arm that was supposed to be extremely hard. How is this possible? Dr. Otto looked pale. Tony laughed. Since I have made such bold statements, how could I not develop new weapons for you? Your robotic arm was originally equipped for testing. Combat is not its strong point. In addition, the material is average. I only need to make slight changes to destroy your weapon by increasing the energy level of the laser cannon. Just go ahead and capture him, Alto. You're at the end of your rope. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.